Okay.
And looks like I'm starting right on time. For like the first time ever since I started doing these streams. Alright.
I hope the stream caught that, but hang on, let me start mine.
Yeah, I'm still waiting on S-Man to start
Yeah.
on his end.
All right, that took forever. So for a topic that no matter how we touch it, no matter how delicate we approach it, from now on we're all going to be apparently called white nationalists, white supremacists, and we might as well just get punched by Antifa. So I suggested to Humane that we're going to talk about civic versus ethno nationalism.
With
Yeah.
promotion, and everyone needs to give us money that we're going to give to St. Jude's.
Loud mouth. But
Yeah. So that
Oh
way
my
they
God.
will return it. Well, that would mean we'd have to be big enough for the Washington Post, or was it the New? Yeah, was it the Washington Post that wrote about
the
it?
Wall Street Journal.
Wall
kills
Street
you.
Journal. Wall Street Journal. Yeah. The
Yeah.
Wall Street Journal has to recognize it and call us out on it.
Yeah.
Yes, and then
So-
St. Jude will have to give all the money back because they can't accept money from Nazis.
Oh, this
that
is-
might
okay.
save the lives of children.
Yeah, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. Because if you receive money from even if you receive money, because this is what it was compared to, from a terrorist organization, why would you give money back to that group? If these people are white nationalist Nazi neo-Nazis and they gave money to St. Jude's, don't give it back to them.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. I mean, I have no love of Ethan Ralph, honestly. I think the
Yeah.
guy is a massive, massive scumbag. But I'm like, why would you give money back to them rather than giving it to sick kids? It really makes no sense.
No, it doesn't make any. Even if it was like Lex Luthor himself, or try to think of some super. Even if it was money from Hitler, would you give money back to Hitler? You're like, no. If I give money to Hitler, he's gonna use that to buy more gas chambers. No, just keep the money here. Use it for something, because once you have it, you know you can use it for good. Don't give it back to the evil person. It's the stupidest thing. Oh, well, I guess people are like, oh, well, if we accept money from these evil people, it's like we're endorsing their behavior. No. Why would anybody jump to that conclusion? If you receive money from actual Nazis or from actual evil people, why would accepting that money mean that you endorse their evil? No, you take the money and be like, no, we're not giving you your money back. You guys are evil. If you want to keep giving me money, yeah, go ahead. Because I'm going to use it for good. What you sought to use for evil, I'm going to use for good. You don't let them get the good credit or the good reputation out of it, and you use that money for good.
Yeah. So
I don't know, and we did lose Loudmouth there. I don't know why people can't separate those two. You're like, oh, if I receive money from a bank robber, that means I'm in. No. If somebody if Al Capone gives to your charity, you take that money and you don't give it back to Al Capone. It's because what he's going to use it for is something nefarious.
Yeah.
If you have a chance to take money out of his system, you do it every time.
Yeah. So for some context, everyone.
Oh.
So to the topic of civic nationalism, and no, I wholeheartedly agree with you there, man. With the topics of civic versus ethnic nationalism, there's like tons of types of nationalism.
Yeah.
Like I'm just looking at the Wikipedia thing for it. Communist nationalism, which a lot of the ANCOMs would argue is an oxymoron. Conservative nationalism. There's all sorts.
Communist nationalism is basically just socialism.
Yeah.
That's according to their own definition. I mean, according to real life, it's the opposite way around. I mean, if you ask the majority of people, they will tell you that the USSR was a communist country. They don't call it a socialist country. They say it's a communist country, and it was basically state-enforced communism or socialism. So if you ask the average person, although according to communists, when you're talking to people who are communists and hold that as their ideal, they keep espousing that communism is a lack of a government altogether without realizing, well, then how do you enforce the rules of communism? Because the rules are that everybody has to cooperate. And you're like, well, somebody has to coordinate that, which means you have to have a state. You can't They like the idea of being able to divorce a state from their system, but they can't, because human nature is to be by yourself and do what you want to do regardless of what society says. Communism by its nature says, no, you can't do what you want to do, you have to do what's good for the group. That's going to require some amount of control, or somebody telling people what they would do rather than doing what they would normally do otherwise.
Yeah. So how we got, because the first time I heard of nationalism was after Trump got elected and everyone was freaking the fuck out and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, because when I first heard of nationalism, I wasn't a big fan of it, to be completely honest. I didn't think it'd have the most positive connotation. But after just looking at the simple definition of it, and I know people like to say we over-rely on it, but it's a good place to start. It's just a political, social, and economic ideology movement characterized by the promotion of the interests of a particular nation, especially with the aim of getting and maintaining sovereignty or self-governance over the homeland. Nationalism holds that a nation should govern itself, free from outside interference, and is linked to the concept of self-determination. It goes on for a little longer, but it mentions it further aims to build and maintain a single national identity based on shared and social characteristics, such as culture, language, religion, politics, and a belief in a shared singular history, and to promote the national unity or solidarity, which that's one of the left's favorite words is solidarity.
Yeah.
But yeah. Then it goes on to mention that actually the means of production later down in the Wikipedia thing of nationalism, so that's going to be kind of funny. But that's just nationalism on its own. Civic nationalism divorces, ethnic nationalism out of it entirely. It has nothing to do with it. Good.
Well, here's the thing that people people don't take into consideration, or at least when I get into conversations about this, what people don't bring up is, for the vast majority of history, civic and ethno-nationalism have been one and the same. It's only been in the last 200 to 300 years that those have separated. If you think about England and Spain, and during all of this time, like this, around the 1700s, it was people that were of the same ethnic origin, living in the same area, having the same kind of cultures, the same religions, the same languages, all living together. And when they encountered somebody who spoke a different language, it was already the presumption that they're from a different country, that they're from a different nation, that they have a different set of values, they have a different background, different everything. It's only in the last 200 to 300 years where cultures have started to merge, where we've gotten nation states like the United States, where it didn't matter what your national background was or what your ethnic background was. As long as you held the same civic values, you belonged in the United States. The United States was kind of revolutionary in a lot of ways, but it was the first, and that's why it's called the melting pot, right? It's a melting pot of languages, of cultures, of religions, but the central thing that held us all together were the same civic values, which was established during the Declaration of Independence. And a lot of people say, it was established during the Constitution. No, it's established in the Declaration of Independence itself. That's the foundational document to this country. People always go back, it's the Constitution, the Constitution. The Constitution is meaningless without the Declaration of Independence, because the Declaration of Independence separated the people that were living in this country, or living in this land, from any other country. They said, we're not recognizing the authority of the King of England. We're not recognizing the authority of any other sovereign government. We are ruling ourselves. Without that, the idea of a civic nation cannot exist, because they would be under somebody else's authority. Mm-hmm. So they broke off from the existing authority and said, hey, we're going to rule ourselves. And we're ruling ourselves based on the idea that all men are created equal. And then you get into the actual establishment of the Articles of Confederation, and then that was replaced by the Constitution, and the Constitution has the Bill of Rights stating that the government can't infringe upon these rights. And it's the way the Constitution is written, for some reason people always interpret it as if these constitutional rights only apply to U.S. citizens. At no point in the Constitution does it actually declare that. It actually declares the government shall not make any rules infringing upon these rights. It doesn't say just on people living in the United States, just on people within our boundaries. It's basically saying the government's not supposed to make rules that infringe upon these rights regardless of where they are. I don't know how constitutional lawyers look at this and be like, oh, that's only in the U.S., or that only applies to U.S. citizens, or that doesn't apply to... I'm like, it should apply. The government can't do this to any person. That's my interpretation of it. Because it never specifically states who those rules are supposed to protect. It's a universal, hey, this is supposed to protect any person that the U.S. government comes in contact with. That's my understanding of it. And that falls in lines with the values established by the Declaration of Independence and the Enlightenment thinking and all of that. But it also means that the United States has to have those core values, the value of freedom of speech, the value of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. If we don't have those as our core values, people coming into this country that don't share those, they're not going to get along with us. They're not going to fit into our society.
Common sense guy, the Declaration of Independence was done before the Constitution. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't have... The Constitution would be meaningless if we were still under authority of some other government.
Yeah. And coming back to it, for those who are wondering how, get our terms defined.
Yeah.
About civic nationalism.
Yeah.
It's actually an inclusive form of nationalism that adheres with traditional liberal values, and this is going off of Wikipedia for the record, of freedom, tolerance, equality, and individual rights. The
idea of civic nationalism is a group of people bound by a code rather than their ethnic origin, or it's based on a set of rules that everybody in that society follows. That's civic, like your civic duty. Go to the definition of civic.
Yeah. All right. Is a form of nationalism identified by political philosophers who believe in an inclusive form of nationalism that adheres to, just the word civic itself, right?
Yeah.
Oh, the word civic itself. Okay, let me go to that. Civic. No, not Honda Civic, Google. I mean the actual...
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Honda Civic nationalism. I used to own a Honda Civic. That's something we can all get behind. Have a nation of only Honda Civic owners.
Yep. And the things we'll get behind is pushing the car into the ditch. Relating to a city or town, especially in its administration municipal. Relating to the duties or activities of people in relation to their town, city, or local area.
Yeah, so it's not based on your background, your history, like your ethnic, your racial makeup, your religion. It's based on your living area and the rules of your particular community.
Yeah,
that's what unites those people. It's like, hey, we all live in the same area, we all follow the same rules. That's what unites people under a civic nationalism.
Yeah, Sinister's in the chat. He asks, is this discussion stemming from Trump's statement that he is a nationalist? And I guess
yes and no.
Yeah, to an extent.
But hasn't it always been obvious that Trump was a nationalist?
You would think that the president, that would kind of like be one of this. If you're president of a country, you'd think, oh, he's probably a nationalist for that country. You'd think that those two ideas would be one and the same.
That socialists often will scoff at nationalism, socialists and leftists, even though that socialist regimes have always been extremely nationalistic.
Oh, yeah.
All right. North Korea, extremely nationalistic.
Oh, what are you talking about? They're not a communist country. They're a democracy, Democratic Republic of Korea.
Yes.
Not true communism. No, I'm kidding. But
the People's Republic of Korea, whatever they call themselves.
Yeah.
People's Republic.
Yeah. But with Donald Trump, I don't know if you guys listened to his inaugural address. I did. It came off as very nationalist, very populist, and very protectionist.
Yeah, and then more recently he came out saying, I know it's not a popular term, but I'm a nationalist. And immediately the media started calling it. I was like, oh, this is code. This is, dog whistling to all the white nationalists. And I'm like,
I cannot stand that.
Do you want the president of your country to be an internationalist? Like he's got international goals ahead of the people of that elected him?
Honestly, I cannot stand the term dog whistling. It is such
Oh.
it's so full of shit.
It is the most obnoxious term, and it basically is a way to justify strawmanning somebody else.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's
That's
you
all it
don't
is.
mean what you actually say. You mean whatever I think you said.
It gets really tiresome. Like, I mean, like certain talking points I've seen people make.
Tiresome.
whether-
That's dog whistling to all the insomniacs out there.
God damn it. But yeah, I've heard people say if you're talking about crime in the inner cities, if you're talking about what's going on in black communities, like as an example, because I already know people are going to be like, as small as dog whistling, but whatever. It gets really annoying. What am I dog whistling now?
Oh, well, it's kind of like Ocasio-Cortez's most recent tweets. I don't know if you've been following that. Oh, dude, it's so bad. So she posted this. She posted this little. I don't know if she was tweeting from her or live streaming from her kitchen or something like that, where she talks about the 3 chambers of government, and
Branches
then
of government, yeah. She said the 3 branches of government were the presidency, the House, and the Senate.
yeah,
She is a
Yeah.
fucking moron.
and then when people criticized her about him, there's an actual representative who is
No, they didn't
not,
criticize her.
Well-
I mean, the cat called her over it, okay?
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Is so there's a Republican representative from, I believe, from Arizona or maybe it was New Mexico, who talked about knowing the actual branches of government and how he's not that much older than her. He's like 23 or something like that. And he was talking about her lack of basic knowledge proves that she's not right for the job, and she blocked him over this. And then she claims that Republicans are criticizing her over her because of her race rather than her actual points.
She's gonna do that her entire fucking career.
And I'm like, he's not
That's
a white
all
guy.
She's ever done. She's a moron. That's all she's capable of.
From the best that I can understand, that representative is either a Native American or Hispanic. I don't know the actual ethnic makeup of him. I'm like, but she criticized him as if his dispute against her was all race based. And I'm like, he was talking about exactly what you said, not about your race and not about healthcare or whatever she tried to change the argument into.
If she says something stupid, okay,
Yeah.
it's always all right. Anyone who criticizes her and points out the dumb shit she says is always going to be a racist or a
Yeah.
sexist.
We
That's gonna be the
Racist,
entirety of her
sexist,
fucking
or
career.
just dodging the argument because it's really all about healthcare. And I'm like, it's about
honestly,
you not understanding where your role in the government is, the place that you just got hired.
they should have had a Hispanic Republican woman criticize her. Like, I can't think of any off the top of my head. I know there's the current governor in New
Well-
Mexico. It's a Hispanic Republican woman.
Well, that's the other thing is, even if there was one like that was criticizing her, they would find something else, because this is the weird thing. Ted Cruz is Cuban, like his dad is from Cuba, and yet for some reason, when white women voted for Ted Cruz, they were voting against minorities because they didn't vote for Beto O'Rourke, the Irish guy.
Honestly, I have to ask.
This is the I'm like,
Identity politics are cancer, basically, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
oh yeah, and you're like, so you're ignoring the fact that Ted Cruz actually is Cuban and actually is Latino, but you're saying that people voting for him are against minorities because they didn't vote for the guy who's purely Irish, and I'm like that.
But honestly,
What?
is this has gotta be
the identity
the first
politics
time
that
any,
they gerrymander their identity politics.
What kind of congresswoman is blocking her political opposition on Twitter? What the fuck?
Loudmouth, I have an answer to your question. It's basically what would happen if Steve Shives was elected to the House of Representatives.
Yeah, I forget why we started talking about that, but that was because that's kind of not related to nationalism.
no.
But yeah, it's kind of the
Yeah.
oh, anytime you
It's
mention
just
this sort of thing, let's
Steve
make it about
Shives.
something completely. Oh, because she made it about race. She's like, oh, my critics
yeah,
only
yeah.
care about my race or my gender.
Right.
Yeah.
It's as if Mrs. Steve Shives had run for Congress and won.
Oh, God.
Essentially, it's
Ugh.
worse. Okay,
Oh,
I
no,
haven't-
yeah,
alright.
she's
Yeah.
she's probably going to be scolding the entire country about their music collection very soon.
I can imagine. You know, I wonder if for every time Ted Cruz gets elected to public office, the people who voted for him get free Cuban cigars.
Oh yeah, it was part of Cruz's platform.
Yep.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's got to have some way to make up for the Zodiac killings.
He posted that on fucking
Oh, dude,
Twitter.
that was Oh, I saw something on Twitter and I thought it was legitimate, but it was a parody account. So you know how Trump made a tweet about little Adam shit and spelled it SCHITT instead of Schiff with F's instead of T.
Yeah.
And I saw it looked like the legitimate Donald Trump account because I saw a bunch of people posting on it saying, "Oh, this is exactly what the president needs to say," but it was a parody account. But he was saying, "Oh, thank you for all pointing out the my typo in an earlier tweet about Adam Schiff. I meant to spell Adam shit, and he spelled it the right, SHIT." And I was like, "Oh, dude, that." And then I retweeted that, and I'm like, "Oh, wait, never mind. It's got an underscore in your name. Curse you, parody account. If Trump had actually done that, dude, I mean, like 4 more years.
Oh god.
Dude, that would have been awesome on his part. But anyway.
Well, didn't another Democrat congressional representative threaten to nuke the country?
Yes.
Over gun control? Who was that?
Stallworth or something like that. I gotta look up the name. I don't remember off the top of my head. It has been making the rounds. He was talking about taking back people's guns and how everybody who's like members of the NRA and people who are pro Second Amendment talk about if you take away our guns, you're gonna have to take it from our cold dead hands. And he's like, "Oh, well, that's gonna be a civil war, and it's gonna be a short civil war because the government has nukes." And you're like, you're talking about nuking your own country. Like, let's tie this back into nationalism. How? Like, if your people are against you, the correct way to keep them in line is to threaten nuking them?
He's clearly.
Even Kim Jong-un never threatened to nuke his own country. even Kim Jong-fucking-un only threatens to nuke other countries.
Yeah.
All right. So, yeah, that guy is 100 times crazier than Kim Jong-un.
Oh, but it was just a joke, guys. It was just a joke. Democrats.
Yeah. Honestly,
Yeah.
I mean, the midterms were pretty interesting to look at. The Republicans lost the House as I predicted, but they kept the Senate, and they made some gains. So,
okay, let's bringing this back to nationalism. At least from the president's perspective, should be about ensuring that he's taking care of the citizens of his country more than that's priority number one. That's why, make America great again, America first. These are things that he keeps saying because that's his viewpoint, and that should be the viewpoint of the leader of a country. The people who elected me, their well-being comes ahead of any other well-being. Got to think of yourself before you think of any other country or any other dilemma outside of the U.S. And that's kind of the opposite of what other leaders of other countries what's her name? Merkel from Germany, where she doesn't care about her citizens. It's all about, we got to think about these poor migrants that are coming in and all at the expense of the citizens who put her in power.
Thank God she's retiring, but yeah.
Yeah. And same thing with France, that their leader or whatever is like, these poor migrants, and you're taking in all these migrants at the expense of the people who live in your country and voted you in the first place. That's backwards.
Well, you know what I did today on Twitter? I'm very proud of. Okay, there was this European guy. I think he was British, who was scoffing at Americans for being violent. So I told him, I can't wait till Article 13 goes in effect, and I won't have to listen. Then I won't have to listen to little shits like you anymore. Do you have a license for that Twitter account?
You got a license for
it?
Yes, I'm actually very proud of that one.
Yeah.
That's the best way to shut up Europeans, right there.
Yeah. So next time,
next
time I have to deal with that another British person. Yeah. I'm just gonna quote his tweet and say, "Article 13, please come for Christmas."
Yeah, please come for Christmas.
Yeah.
Do you have a license for that account? Do you have a license to say that?
Yeah, and those sorts of things were put into place to crack down on people like Tommy Robinson and Paul Joseph Watson and Count Dankula. And it's going to crack down on, everybody.
Oh yeah, Article 13 basically eliminates fair use. All right, once Article 13 is implemented, if it gets fully implemented, there is no fair use in all of Europe.
I'm gonna say there's gonna be one exception to that rule: Muslims.
They'll still have fair use.
Oh yeah, they'll get the whatever. Just turn a blind eye to it. Let them keep doing what they're doing. That's gonna be the policy. I mean, because that's what they're doing right now with the grooming gangs and with
Europeans have been little shitheads. So it'll be interesting to not have to listen to them anymore.
So you're gonna see, the EU overall, like all of their social media is gonna be nothing but like Islamic, pro-Islamic statements, not that aren't being curtailed by Article 13, and then everything else is gonna be censored and shut down, and everybody else is gonna be in prison. That's
so
just given the track record of what those countries have done. I mean, they've outright ignored criminal activity from Muslims because can't say anything about them. gotta give them, gotta protect them from harassment or whatever it is. So they'd be, even though it would be the rule. Yeah, even though it would be the rule, they'd be less inclined to actually enforce it on that population, given that they haven't enforced any of the other rules on that population.
So, but what is all the channels we won't be able to watch anymore? Sargon will be shut down.
Yep.
He's in Europe. Teal Deer, he's in Europe. Miss Misa, poor Miss Misa. I like Miss Misa. We won't be able to listen to her anymore. It's gonna suck, kind of.
Yeah. So what HUMANe is suggesting is we all convert to Islam. Everyone in Europe convert to Islam. So Islam raises, Islam goes over to the roof. Everybody.
Yeah. And all of them, all of the European viewers that we have, assuming we have any subscribers in Europe, none of them are going to be able to watch us anymore.
Yeah.
I'm going to miss those guys. It'll be like a wall put up between us.
Yeah, it's going to be
us and our European followers.
So,
yeah, but
hopefully, if things go the way that I hope they will in the next year or so, there will be a social media platform that can actually circumvent all that. But
no, it wouldn't be able to because Article 13's a legal thing. It's not like with YouTube fucking up and being assholes. You could create an alternative platform because they're a private company.
Yeah.
With Article 13, it's going to be nationwide. You won't be able to.
I think this is good.
Yeah, well, with the exception of that is, in order for them to enforce the Article 13, they have to be able to track that to a user and all that sort of thing. So as platforms become more and more decentralized, it's going to be harder for them to trace it back to the actual origins and things along those lines. So
possibly, yeah. It's not going to hurt real criminal enterprise. They'll find a way around it.
Yeah, they already use the dark web and things like that. So while this is not something that can be set up from the get-go, right? And Minds, I just saw an interview with the creator of Minds talking about this. Is they had to start in the same way that other platforms started, and then they're becoming more decentralized over time. And eventually it's going to be a completely decentralized platform. So think about it like most of the people use Facebook on their phones or something like that. It's a downloadable application that is separate from your browser. Once it gets to that point, you can actually go through VPNs and things along those lines to encrypt the traffic so that way you can't trace it back to its origins, and you have a decentralized network, and as long as you have a login to that application, you have access to that network. So it's getting the foothold to begin with, and then turning it into a standalone app that people have on their desktop or on their phone, and once people have that app, they no longer need to go through the regular HTTP internet channels. You can actually have a completely separate protocol and completely decentralized network, similar to how Bitcoin operates. You don't need.
But is everyone going to have the skills to do that, though?
No. Once it becomes a standalone app, all it is a simple logon. It makes those connections for you.
Yeah.
So you don't have to. That's the problem right now. Is there's not a good transition from going to Facebook online and then going to the Facebook app. It's not a smooth transition, at least for most alternatives.
It's really disgusting that Europeans have allowed this shit to happen. Article 13 is a complete abomination.
Yeah. And it's actually acting against their nation's best interest.
Do you guys think that this is going to be used as an argument for Brexit?
Oh yeah.
Oh well, they're already trying to shut down Brexit, and this is a way of preventing Brexit from ever actually happening. That's kind of the idea behind it. Is they're trying to shut down Brexit, and they're trying to shut down spreading information, and they're trying to make it look like the people who want Brexit aren't all that. They aren't the majority. If they can cut off those communication networks, people will be isolated again, and the idea of Brexit actually happening become less and less possible the less connected people are. The reason Brexit was so
You know, the best video on it was actually a Mekatar. He's just like, "Get fucked, Europeans!" Right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna shoot off my guns and stare at some glorious tits. You want to know what I can do here in America? I can. All right, I can post a video mocking you and laughing at you, which you won't be able to do in a few months. That's basically how he handled it, and I think actually that's the best way to handle it. Just because really, Europeans. I know we can all be all populist assholes and blame it on the elites, but no, really, the average European did this to themselves. Absolute power isn't possible without help. It was absolutely the apathy and stupidity of the average European that led to this ridiculousness.
Yeah, well, they demanded, protection at the expense of their liberty.
They did, and that's what they get. Article 13, which basically totally silences all their speech.
And when it comes to the EU, the people who want Brexit, they're in the minority of the EU, but they're the majority of the UK. They are the majority in the UK, but they're the minority when it comes to the EU as a whole. So that's where the problem comes in, is because the EU is implementing rules for the entire group because they have the majority opinion, and it's penalizing the majority in the UK.
Despite Brexit, apparently it's been confirmed Article 13 will indeed affect Britain.
Yeah, it will affect Britain, and Britain's not going to actually have their actual Brexit. That's what it's looking like more and more, is even though, like, this is why, even though I like Nigel Farage, like, the way he handled all of this was completely backwards. As soon as it got passed, he stepped down and was trying to pass it off to somebody else as if they're going to finish it out for him. He was the figurehead for it, and he should have been. I don't know. He wasn't prime minister or anything like that. He was just
had a field day with that one.
Yeah, he was just in charge of the party, right? The UKIP party, or was it? No, what? I forget the names of those English parties or whatever. But he was just the leader of that particular party, right? He should have, at that point, he should have been running for prime minister or whatever it was.
No.
Yeah.
No. Sorry.
What?
Sorry.
You're arguing with your dog?
My puppy kept licking me in the face. It was,
Yeah, so at that point, he should have been running for leadership of his country rather than, instead he chose to step down, and that completely derailed the whole Brexit thing. And now it looks like Brexit is not going to happen at all. And this Article 13 is going to silence the majority in the UK, and they're not going to be able to communicate. It's shutting off communication with each other, and it allows the EU and the minority in the UK who hate Brexit to spread their propaganda unmitigated, and the people who are in favor of Brexit, all their communication channels are going to be shut down using Article 13. So and this is the first step of any kind of authoritarian regime, is to cut off communication.
Yep.
There's so many historical examples of this. Yeah, you limit communication between these groups. That completely disorganizes. Actually, this is actually not just authoritarian regimes. This is the first rule of warfare.
Yeah,
disable communications amongst the enemy.
And a lot of leftist YouTubers have also been speaking out against Article 13. That's the thing. I don't know anyone. It passed the European Parliament, despite the fact that I haven't read anyone who supports it. No one likes this bill.
Oh, well, that's the thing. Passed. The EU Parliament is not bound to the individual countries. They're not bound to their populations. They are independent.
Yeah, what a great idea that was.
They aren't elected by the populations. They are elected by the rulers of that country. It's basically like an ambassador who's appointed by the president, but the ambassador at least is responsible for the president, or to the president. Once somebody is elected to the EU Council, they're no longer bound by their individual country. Like the Prime Minister of the UK nominates whoever to go into the EU, but once they're inside the EU, they're no longer bound by the prime minister. They're completely independent at that point. And they're just... So that's what leads them to make these votes that are actually against the interest of the country they came from.
Right.
Because they're no longer bound to... There's nothing holding them
to
to that. They're not voted by the populace. They're not responsible to them. The prime minister can't remove them. Once they're in there, they're there.
Europe has basically been kind of strangleholding Britain by kind of quenching their access to the general European market. And keep in mind, Britain trades with the rest of Europe more than the United States and China combined.
Yeah.
So that gives Europe immense power over Britain, because if they cut off all trade with Britain, Britain's economy will collapse. And they've been basically using that to keep control over them and really prevent Brexit.
Yeah, well, I would think if the UK did separate completely from the European Union, I think America would open up more trade routes with them and would actually become a bigger trade partner, because there's less restrictions.
Trump should actually get on that, but Trump
should be a huge incentive. Yeah, that should be a huge incentive for Brexit. Like, dude, as soon as you guys are out of the EU, he should be like, okay, no tariffs between either country. As soon as you guys are out of the EU,
whining about
free
people
trade
on Twitter, calling people horse-faced on Twitter because he's a fucking moron.
That should be the incentive. Is like, hey, UK, as soon as you guys leave the EU, free trade completely between our two countries. That should be the incentive, but he's not going that route, and I don't quite know why. Well, the same thing is like he build the wall. What wall?
Yeah.
And Coulter just tweeted about this. Number of miles built on the wall so far, 0. Today, additional miles added, 0. We'll update you tomorrow.
Well,
2 years, nothing.
Because she put so much faith in Trump, even though he gave nobody any reason to put that much faith in him, but they did anyway, because herp-de-derp slogan.
Yeah.
Make America great again, dirt, morons.
I mean, the closest thing that we've had so far is the prototypes of walls. That's it. And there hasn't been very much progress outside of that. It's not going to be that expensive to actually do the wall. And there's been a number of people who have suggested alternative ways to get it through and get it done using the executive power he currently has. And yet, none of that has been done. And he keeps saying, oh, it's Congress that's holding him back. And I'm like, no, you have authority in the executive branch to get this done, because Congress already passed laws concerning a wall about the U.S.'s borders. It's already on the books. It's just no administration so far has actually implemented anything along those lines.
Yeah, it was in 2006 they passed something about that, and it's not been done.
Yeah, it's very, very odd that he knows he's got the authority, and I guess maybe the people around him who are advising him aren't giving him, are telling him he can't do it, or maybe other things are becoming priorities, but he's got 2 years
honestly,
to get some kind of progress.
It was a slogan to get votes from the Hicks. It wasn't really something he cared about.
He's got 2 years, and if no progress is made on that wall, and that it's going to be a one-term presidency. That's... as considering, I do think he has done more good for the country than people give him credit for, but without that big in-your-face, hey, something provable, everything else has been behind the scenes. All the other good that has come under his administration has been, oh, well, that's nice, but what are the effects? People aren't seeing the effects because the effects are long-term. They're looking at the short-sighted, what has he done for me lately sort of thing. They're not considering the ramifications of his first 100-day policy and what that can do for the country over the course of the next few years. The only other thing that the Trump administration keeps touting about is the current economy, which is starting to slow down, and we're actually starting to see dips. And the fear is that over this, the holiday shopping season, which is a big boom for the U.S. economy, usually year over year, we're actually going to see declining numbers over last year. That's my prediction. I don't know if that's going to hold up, but that's my prediction, even even though I have a personal... excuse me.
Need some water?
I wish it was the other way around, because I have a personal invested interest in actually making this holiday season extremely lucrative. Like I said, I've got a bunch of inventory that I'm trying to sell off during the holiday season, and I hope Black Friday and all that help me get my business up and off the ground, and I see these big explosions that I was expecting because like I was talking about a couple of weeks ago. I've got several $1,000s worth of merchandise that I got for pennies on the dollar. So if I can sell that off in the next 2 months, that's going to fund Funfair as well as my other projects, and get my businesses going and all that sort of thing. And then that should free up all my time to work completely on my fair market business and on Funfair, as opposed to doing all this other random stuff that I've had to do that is eating up a lot of my time, so I can't work on my website. So
Rip.
it's in my best interest to have a amazing holiday season. I want the economy to do well during this holiday season, and we lost Loudmouth again. But I fear that this holiday season, even though it will be an increase, even though the economy is growing year over year, the amount of increase is slowing down, right? So if we increased 2% last year, but we only increased 1.8 this year, it's still an increase, but it's a slowing down. And granted, the larger the economy gets, the percentages it's harder to meet those same percentages or whatever. And I'm just throwing out numbers. I don't know if these are the exact numbers of 2% and 1.8. I'm just trying to make that comparison of growth that is slowing down will eventually stop.
Yeah.
In order for growth to continue, it has to keep getting more growth every year. Otherwise, we hit that point of stagnation. And my fear is that the U.S. economy before Trump's presidency is over, it's going to stagnate. It's going to hit that point where we're growing, but the rate of growth is stagnant, which means we're maintaining. That's not a position we ever want to be in the United States because we can't afford to maintain. Right now, because of our national debt, because of our the unfunded liabilities, all of these the wars that we continue to pay for and all that sort of thing, we cannot afford stagnation. We can't afford maintenance mode. We have too much debt to maintain. In order for us to meet our debt, we have to see exponential growth, which we need to see increasing growth year over year for the next 2 years. I don't think we're going to see that. And the temporary gains we've seen so far in the economy, if what I fear is going to happen, the temporary gains we'll see in the economy won't be there come 2020, and Trump presidency is not going to see that second term. The only thing that's going to save that is the in-your-face, hey, at least we got the wall done, trust me on the next 4 years. Because if he makes it to a second term, that's when we'll start to see some of the impact of the policies he did in his first 100 days of this presidency. Because those policies involving rollbacks of regulations and changes to the energy policies in the United States, that's when those will start to go into full effect. Because companies have changed their long-term strategies based on those. But the financial impact of all of that, it's not something that you see immediately. It's something you see in the 5 to 10 year frame, which once we get into the second term of Trump's presidency, that's when we'll start to see that. And that's when we'll start to see how much, well, aside from Trump's tariff policies, pretty much everything else Trump has done while in charge has been to benefit the U.S. as opposed to trying to benefit the world as a whole, which for some reason is a point of critique.
Apparently, I was while we're talking about this, I think that with Trump's presidency as it's going right now, I think that without the House of Representatives and just a slightly increased majority in the Senate, I'm not sure if he what he can get done without I mean, yeah, he could get some stuff done. I just think he'll be slightly reduced due to losing one house of Congress, but he did make gains in another.
Well, yeah, so while it's unfortunate that he did lose the House of Representatives, it wasn't as big of a loss as it could have been. as I guess it should have been. Like, given what happened under Obama, given what happened under Bush, given what happened under, the trend, this most recent flip of Congress, it's like you said, usually it's, whatever party has control of the White House, Congress flips the other way.
Yeah.
That's generally the trend. The amount of the flip in the House of Representatives was pretty small considering. They got, an extra, over the majority, they have, 10, 12 hot seats? Well, actually, we're not even sure about all that, because apparently they're still counting votes for...
Yeah, in my district, not my district, but the 4th district, the Republican, I think she's going to lose, but, yeah, there's several races that are undecided, but it's getting close, like...
Yeah, it's ridiculous how long this is taking. And it's ridiculous how, hey, Republican won. Oh, we found all these extra votes, and they're all Democrat. Dude, there's so much voter fraud going on.
Rick Scott in Florida won by less than, I think it was 0.3%. Like his predecessor Bill Nelson, he's been in there for what would be 18 years this January. Yeah, narrowly defeated, but I mean, absentee, ballots and whatnot. I mean, that could be a factor. Although I think that I did not want another voting crisis where, like there's been various issues back, like Bush v. Gore and whatnot for the Senate presidency and whatnot that would just take forever to get dealt with. In fact, it took over half a year in one Senate race in Minnesota to get dealt with. Like the dude took office 5 months after he was supposed to.
So, what we're likely to see is, or this is what I hope. I hope that there are significant investigations into each of these close races to investigate voter fraud.
Yeah.
And the representative from Texas has already talked about that. Because, this was election day where James O'Keefe had documented video proof of voter fraud going on. And then the same day, that representative from Texas, not Ted Cruz, but the other guy, I don't remember his name, tweeted out saying, no, this will be investigated. And what I hope is that similar investigations occur in every one of these states where it was kind of controversial, or, investigation into how rampant this voter fraud is, because this voter fraud that has been going on has actually seems to have flipped some of these elections. I don't know how extensive it is, and we won't know until a full investigation, but my hope is that in 6 months from now, once they thoroughly investigate all this voter fraud and they actually figure out how much of a percentage of the vote was actually voter fraud, that they actually will have special elections again. Because you've been in charge for 6 months, but your election wasn't exactly legitimate because of so much voter fraud. Maybe a second election special elections will occur in these states, and they'll try again.
They've done it before, actually. There is actual precedent for that. I think
that's what I hope happens. Although, and then we might see the House go split even, or maybe I don't know how close. Because it's really difficult to tell how many of these House of Representatives, because so many is still up in debate, up in the air.
Yeah. I think that it was also bizarre to see turnout exploded, and the Republicans lost a lot of governorships, notably Nevada, which they have not lost it in a while. They lost Michigan, Wisconsin, and these are states Donald Trump won by the absolute skin of his teeth, and they went very Democratic in this election. So I think that he has to fight a two-front war, because Georgia, when he carried it, and North Carolina, they were not a landslide. It was very close. Same with Florida and Texas. And I think that with it getting closer and closer now, it might become a swing state, or if the Democrats play their cards right, could potentially flip. And same with the Democratic-leaning states that Donald Trump had carried, or had come close to carrying. He's going to have to fight to defend those, or else the Donald Trump presidency ends in 2020.
Yeah. Which I think is going to be bad for the country overall, but But what I would hope to see, which is less likely now, considering Democrats control the House of Representatives, which House of Representatives is where policies come from, right? That's the bills have to start in the House of Representatives. I would like to see a bill or some kind of initiative for a federal mandate for voting ID, because that will eliminate, if not all, the majority, or at least the vast majority of these illegal votes and these absentee ballots, and the sheer number of these absentee and write-in ballots that are Democrats. That's like that. The odds of them being that heavily leaning Democrats is not feasible. It's not logical, right?
But don't Mickey Mouse and Spider-Man deserve a vote?
Yeah, they do. Which, the write-in votes and stuff like that happen all the time. But it's
Cora. I mean, doesn't she deserve the right to vote?
Oh, okay. I get what I thought you meant votes for them, not their votes. Yeah. Their votes shouldn't.
Yes, Cora will definitely be a Democrat vote. I mean,
Yeah, if Cora does vote, if Mickey Mouse does vote, if dead people vote, they vote Democrat, and you're like, well, that should be.
She's all right. She doesn't pick up after herself. She's never held a job. She knows absolutely nothing about civics. Absolutely nothing about how the economy works. She is the perfect Democrat voter.
Dude, I actually think she's a better candidate than Ocasio-Cortez. Then.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, I would definitely take Cora over Ocasio-Cortez.
And she's way cuter. I mean, look. Is there anyone cuter than this fuck?
And no crazy eyes.
Yeah, no crazy eyes, no messed up teeth. Yeah. Thank God Ocasio-Cortez is not old enough to run for president, or else
But to be fair, Cora probably doesn't know about the 3 chambers of government.
Well, that makes her equally qualified as Cortez.
All right.
No, you don't need to know about the 3 chambers of government in order to run for president.
Yeah. So I don't think a federal mandate for voter IDs would affect the governor races and things along those lines. Although I do think there needs to be investigations concerning those. I mean, the voter fraud seems to be more of an issue than people are giving it credit for. Well, then the Democrats are giving it credit for, because obviously it keeps benefiting the Democrats. So why investigate what's benefiting them? But just from the stuff that we do know about legitimately proven voter fraud, it overwhelmingly supports Democrats, which you should think, okay, that should raise a lot of red flags, is like, the Democrats are the primary ones behind any voter fraud. That's, if they're willing to do it once, how many times are they willing to do it, and how often, and how many different locations? Dead people don't tend to vote Republican, which is weird, right?
Yeah, there was a joke, I think, on this one parody site that seems to lean right wing. It said, a comet full of ballots mysteriously lands in Florida. It's like this comet with like a tail on it entering the Earth's atmosphere with a bunch of ballots on it.
Well, there's also this is the weird thing that I haven't heard many people commenting on is it's Broward County in Florida, right?
Yeah.
The same county where the school shooter, who should have been in jail but kept getting slaps on the wrist and was, basically like, oh, we don't want to perpetuate the prison system. They let him out into the public, and then, oh, hey, he did a school shooting. Not our fault. We didn't do it. It's not our problem. Same Broward County that has that level of corruption was also corrupt in 2016 concerning the national election for president, and is now doing more voter fraud, and to the point where the what's-her-face stepped down. That county is probably like the most corrupt county, and it's all Democrat run. And you're like, this should be something that is blaring or screaming in people's faces, and yet people, I mean, I haven't heard anybody make this connection about that's the same county where the school shooting, and this is a systemic issue of corruption in that particular county. And everybody in charge is a Democrat. This should be something that Republicans and conservatives as a whole are just completely hammering home and just stating this should be a talking point that is repeated ad nauseum on media outlets. They should be talking about, like, look, Broward County, that is the example county of what we don't want America to become. That is everything wrong with this country consolidated into one county. And these are all the problems, and this is how they occur. Don't be like Broward County, and yet for some reason, people are focusing on single issue. Oh yeah, Broward County election corruption. You're like, no, there's corruption throughout the entire county. This every wrong thing with America can be found in this one county that is repeatedly the source of national headlines, which you're like, okay, that should be Republicans' talking point. Like, dude, look at this. This is what Democrats want. This is their ideal county. They want the entire country to be like Broward County, and they want these types of things to continue to occur. That's what their end game is for every county in the United States to be like Broward County. And they should be using that as their rallying cry, or like, don't be like this. This is what we're trying to avoid. And yet, for some reason, it seems kind of like downplayed everywhere I've heard it talked about. And I'm like, to me, that's just, it's infuriating. Yeah. It's infuriating knowing that I have a channel with maybe 120 subscribers, and of that, only maybe 2 people watch streams, and knowing that our influence is like, dude, these are the types of things that I want conservative millennial, or whatever, what's her name, Allie Beth Stuckey, and roaming millennial, and, Candace Owens, and people like that who actually have the platform to talk about. Like, start hammering these points home.
Yeah, I think all of them are just for their own aggrandizement, to be honest. But
yeah,
what is what it is.
Candace Owens, unfortunately, more so. I still like her overall. I still think she's doing more good than bad. But there is a certain level of public attention whoring going on there.
Yeah.
I probably less than what most people think, but still enough to make it annoying. Not as much as Laura Loomer. I don't know why James O'Keefe I don't know why James O'Keefe talks about her like in a good manner, because she is an attention whore. And Jack Prasovic, or whatever his name is.
She's made a royal ass of herself so many times. The stupid time she ran in the stage to like interrupt that play, that was horrible. Then there was that whole bullshit with the tires, which oh man, was that funny? Yeah, she thought like Antifa slashed her tire. But she got a flat tire.
Yeah, it was a dry rot in her tire. Yeah.
It was a dry
and the
rot
Michelin Man commented on it, like the Michelin Man official account. That was the best part of it.
That was hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that was funny.
All right.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And then there was like that dude she was stalking. The thing is, Laura Loomer, she's not a pretty woman, and a lot of dudes have like said that she's like really stalkerish.
Yeah.
Does she really have to be, though? I mean, I know she's not a pretty woman, but there's so many thirsty dudes out there, it shouldn't be too hard.
Yeah, but HUMANE, this got down to the wire right here.
Oh yeah, when it's that close, voter fraud can point to what's going on. Like,
yeah, the margin here is a little over 1/10%.
Even if it turns out that Scott lost, the vote, just isolating voter fraud and getting rid of it as much as possible. That should be everybody's priority, because with as rampant as it seems to be in this the midterm elections, expect it to be 3 or 4 times as much for the 2020 elections.
Yeah, and but can you imagine beating someone in an election by less than a little over 10,000 votes?
Yeah,
like that's fucking close, and that's happened before for president. I read up about it, and poor bastard died only 90 days into his own presidency. Rip.
All right, and let's bringing this conversation back to the nationalist view, because we talked about civic nationalism. We talked, well, I mean, somewhat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the idea is that it's a group of people that all live in the same area. There's no ethnic or no background, no historical context that keeps them together. It's a set of rules that everybody follows, a set of values. And we talked about the wall, but we need to talk about how those two ideas come together. And you were talking about the state elections should be kind of similar, like in the same sense that Trump should be a nationalist for the United States. He should have the United States' best interest in everything that he does. Everything should be United States centric, and that shouldn't be a point of criticism, and yet for some reason it seems to be. It's completely bizarre. It doesn't make any sense to me. Like, oh, how dare he put America over other countries? I'm like, that's his job. That's what he's elected to do, is to put America first.
And besides, don't other countries put themselves first at all?
That's what they're supposed to do as well. Although Germany, France, and a lot of the EU countries don't seem to be taking that to heart. They seem to be putting other countries ahead of their own, which it's
bizarre.
Yeah, it's very bizarre, and trying to take this so bringing this back to the state scale, the governors and the state representatives should be putting their state's best interest ahead of the nation's best interest. And that seems to be going backwards. The representatives for Florida should be saying, hey, Florida first. The representatives for Texas should be saying Texas first. The representatives for Maine should be saying Maine first. Representatives for California should be saying California first.
Oh,
and
this is a good from Babylon B, the parody site. California legislator unveils a plan to raise taxes on wildfires until they move to other states.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, they've been pretty good. Babylon B. I've never heard of them until like the last month or so, but they are like the new Onion. Although
yeah, they have some really good ones. I like this one that said, "Increased fear that Democrat rhetoric could lead to violence against unborn children."
Oh Lord!
It's there's an increased claim that Democrat rhetoric is leading to increasing violent attacks on unborn babies. When Hillary Clinton was reached for comment, she said, "No, I'm afraid if we don't continue our rhetoric, children could be born alive in this country."
Oh God!
Wow.
Yeah,
sad, but I mean, it's funny because of the way it's stated, but it's sadly true. That oh man,
I know. That's why it's so funny.
Oh.
That is brilliant right there.
Yeah. But taking these concepts, so the country should have its own best interest ahead of every other country. States should have their own best interest ahead of every other state. Counties should have their best interest ahead of every other county. Cities, their best interest over every other city. And, down to the family unit, right? Their family comes first over everybody else. That should be the order. And yet, for some reason, the mass media and a lot of these leftists have it backwards. Like, oh yeah, no, family needs to put their community ahead of themselves, and they've got it reversed, which is what leads to a country putting these needs of some other country or some other people ahead of the needs of their citizens. And it's the same thing as you taking food from your children to give to the children of somebody who didn't take care of their kids. If you're taking meals from your children to give to the homeless children or children with parents who didn't take care of them, that's what leftists are essentially doing at every stage of this process. They're like, oh no, let's starve our kids to save somebody else who made bad decisions. Let's take food from the mouths of...
As humanity progresses, it sees a larger chunk of the human race as a member of its tribe. Essentially, empathy is a form of tribalism. You have empathy for other members of the tribe. Well, let's say instead of seeing just your small group as your tribe, you see the entire country as your tribe, or the entire human race as your tribe, eventually. And for other animals, we see them as part of our tribe because we know we have a common ancestry.
Well, the downside there is there's not enough resources for everybody to be a part of the tribe, because somebody is going to lose out. Somebody is going to miss a meal. And determining who misses that meal, it's kind of essential to human survival overall, right? If you're saying the people who, right now, people are making the decision based on emotions, oh, this one group hasn't eaten, so we need to take food from the group that has eaten and give it to the group that hasn't eaten. And you're like, but the reason they haven't eaten is because they spent all their money at the casino. They blew their entire paycheck drinking and partying. That's why they don't have money for food.
The whole ant and the grasshopper scale
Yes.
is what you're saying?
Yeah, it's the ants and the grasshopper, and you're like, you're taking money from the ants, or taking resources from the ants to give to the grasshoppers because the grasshoppers need it. Because you've included the grasshoppers into your colony of ants. And you're like, that's backwards. That's the problem.
Yeah, Hopper was a dick.
Yeah. That... Bug's Life, yeah.
Yes.
But that's the problem right now, is including too many people all at once, which that'll tie us back into the immigration, building the wall, and why it's essential for Trump 2020 and why it's essential for the United States. Is right now, that would be putting the needs of other countries or other groups, making them equal to the needs of our group. Which, that's detrimental to the survival of both groups.
Spock's statement, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
Yeah. I mean, that's essentially a rephrasing of Marx's, from each according to their ability to each according to their need. It's it's the same idea.
It's basically just a basic moral dilemma, that statement. Like the trolley experiment. If the trolley's headed towards 3 people and you pull a lever that makes it kill one person instead, that's a morally good act, even though you essentially killed that person by pulling that lever. Or push the fat man in front of the trolley is what I'm saying. All right, that's what you. All right, you should always push the fat man in front of the trolley.
Yes. It might cut some of his fat off, so he'll lose weight right there.
No, he's gonna die.
Rip, but still. But yeah.
But I argue against that particular, like the flipping the lever. Yes, I'm completely in agreement with that, because somebody's gonna die either way. You don't get to making the choice to reduce the amount of death. That is a moral situation. I don't think it is moral to push someone who would be outside of that moral dilemma into the moral dilemma.
I fail to really see the difference, though.
Well, so you've got a lever. You've got a group of 3 people, and on the other track is 1. Either way, one of those groups is going to die. Right? So you're making the choice to reduce the amount of deaths to 1 instead of 3. Now, in the other situation, you've got that entire train full of people, and the fat man who's not in the path of the train at all. There is no lever to switch to put him in the path of the train. You have to physically push him onto the tracks. Like, he's not one of the 2 choices. You're adding him as a choice. And that's not your, I would say that's not your, we lost that loudmouth again.
Oof.
In that particular dilemma, if the correct position to take would be to dude, I know this is asking a lot. Please sacrifice yourself. That's something you can do. You can implore the fat man to sacrifice himself for the good of the group. You cannot push him and act like you are a moral agent. If you push the fat man in front of the track, you are liable for that man's death. Doesn't matter how many lives you saved in the process, you should be held accountable for the man that you killed. Because he wouldn't have died otherwise. If he jumped of his own accord, if he sacrificed himself, that would be an honorable endeavor. That would be something, yes, that would be, his legacy would go on. You pushing him and denying him that choice does not make you an honorable person, does not make you a moral actor, does not make you the good guy. It still makes you the bad guy. Even if it's for the right reasons, you're still the bad guy. There's no way to salvage that in my mind. There's no way to be like, well, it saved a lot more lives. I'm like, yeah, but it ended one that didn't get a choice. You're removing that choice from him. Now, in the situation where there's two people on the track, those people on the track don't have a choice to begin with. They are apparently fixed or tied down or whatever. And flicking the switch doesn't remove a choice from either of them. Because they never had that choice to begin with. The fat man who's standing by the track, he has the choice to jump of his own free will. Mm-hmm. Removing that choice from him is the immoral thing to do. Yeah. That's why I think those two situations are different. That's just my personal perspective. This is, again, an area that's highly debatable. And this is what we should be talking about when it comes to philosophy. These are the ideas we should be talking about. But instead, I spend all my time arguing about objective morality, in that there is an objectively moral good to pursue. Just trying to get that idea through to people. It's so frustrating. There is a right way to act and a wrong way to act, which means we should be trying to figure out the best possible way to act. If it's all subjective, there's no point in trying to figure out the best possible way to act, because according to you being subjective, there is no best possible way to act. There has to be a moral objective for there to be a best possible way to act. It's just trying to get that idea across to people seems... It's like I'm speaking a different language. And every time So I've gotten into that debate more times than I can count, and I'm like... and that most recent guy was saying, oh, well, who decides moral objectivity? I'm like, who decides moral objective math? Who determined what the value of 1 + 1 is? Who made that decision? Nobody. We determined that because it's the logical conclusion. Ugh. Yeah. And that would be the same thing with morality. It's like we have to determine these as the logical conclusion that, okay, this is the best possible way to act because it's... And whatever we determine that based on, we have to... there has to be some standard by which we can compare that to see if it is actually the best possible action. And without that objective standard, our action does not matter. And yet these same people will moralize and say, oh, well, you are incorrect, sir. And I'm like... You're telling people the wrong opinions, and I'm like, if it's all opinion, there is no wrong opinion. Yeah, it's a completely separate conversation. Yeah. But
oh God, Ham's in the chat.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, he says, and I quote, "HUMANE fails to understand that there is disagreement on what's the best way to act."
Yes, but the idea that there is a best way to act. If it's all subjective, there is no best way to act. Oh, crap. And the entire conversation is going to be derailed talking about objective morality again.
Okay, I just heard something that fucking triggered the ever living fuck out of me.
You scared the fuck out of me. You scared the fuck out of me, Ham. Thanks a
lot. Okay, this argument of who decides objective math or objective truth is absolute horseshit, because it is the rules of mathematics that decides, what is objectively true in math. It is the observations you make.
Oh, hi, Kavanaugh.
Hello, fellow serf.
And that is the case for any objective subject, any objective field, any objective idea.
So how do you
if morality is objective, then it's not determined by one person, it's determined by those same factors.
But how do you determine what is the best behavior? There's all kinds of disagreements on what is the best behavior. For Christians, being a homosexual is, evil. Having sex outside of marriage is evil. Having,
okay.
For Jews, eating pork is evil.
Okay. So for scientists who say that climate change is going to end the world, and then there's scientists who say that climate change is no big deal. They're both operating within the objective realm of science, and both disagree based on their understandings.
except the vast, overwhelming, laughably overwhelming majority of the data suggests that climate change is a serious, serious fucking issue.
Okay, not getting...
And not to mention that the scientists who are against climate change are also the same scientists that argue that cigarettes are good for you.
No, they're not.
Yeah, they are.
No, they're not. Because I've talked to them. They are not the same people. They have nothing to do with cigarettes. I'm not sure why you would make that claim. A guy who just... okay, so I haven't talked to Lord Monckton, but I have talked to a guy who wrote a book with a foreword written by Lord Monckton. This is called Inconvenient Facts. I met him at the Phyllis Schlafly event. We talked quite a bit about this issue.
What, a Phyllis Schlafly event? Oh my god. You sign up with that fucking monster?
She is dead.
Yeah, fuck
so
her.
The event is an event of the Eagle Council or whatever it is was started by her and follows some of the ideas that she... But I don't know why you would call her a monster. Nothing I've seen about her or her political views is monstrous, in my opinion. The primary focus of that particular event was anti-abortion. So I guess maybe she's a monster for not wanting the unborn to be killed.
Oh, God.
By the way,
That's the
Theodore
monster's
Sterling, a mathematics professor known for research on smoking, that was favorable to the industry.
Okay.
Philip Morris paid more than $200,000 in 1990s for his work.
Okay, so that one person represents everybody who's against climate change.
Oh no, there's an entire public relations company, Hill and Knowlton Inc. For outreach since the 1956.
Okay,
so
some of the scientists who are against climate change
we've known climate change has been a reality since we suspected it since the 1890s. We've had it confirmed since the 1940s.
No, we haven't. All right, we're not going to go down this rabbit hole. But you will...
This is a rabbit hole because you're wrong.
Okay, there is a disagreement. And the idea is that...
There is no disagreement among
Okay, there's no
scientists.
disagreement. All right. So, yeah. All right, what else can we find that is objective? Fucking A. Okay. The universe follows specific rules, right? When it comes to gravity and interactions between objects. There's disagreement on this in the realm of science. This is where we get to string theory, quantum theory, and Einsteinian relativity.
Do you know what the actual disagreement is? Do you know what the actual disagreement is?
The disagreement is how these particular phenomenon that we observe can all exist within a single unifying theory. And there's different proposed ideas of how they can. String theory being one of them.
Do you know what the difference between those theories and morality is? Those theories have an insane fuck ton of evidence behind them. They are observable. They are demonstrable. They're repeatable.
Okay, so nothing when it comes to morality is demonstrable or repeatable.
Yeah, you're stuck. You're stuck at the very start of it. At what is the best behavior?
Okay, what is the absolute truth when it comes to how particles interact with each other? We don't know. That's why it's up in the air. That's why there are multiple theories being suggested as to why particles interact the way they do, which is why we have the entire area of quantum mechanics and theoretical physics, because they're trying to determine how things actually work. They're trying to determine that best possible answer. No, and you're saying that morality cannot follow the same rules. Because, in order to have morality, you have to know the best. In order to have science, you would have to know the universal theory for everything.
They can't follow the same rules because, We don't know what the best behavior is.
We don't know what the universal theory for everything is. We don't know, so you can't use the same argument there.
No,
we don't know what the universal theory for everything is, so science is not objective. That is your argument right now.
No,
because you are arguing that we would have to know.
Fucking straw man.
You are arguing that we would have to know the answer.
No.
Yes, best morality is equal to universal theory of everything.
No, it's not. Absolutely not.
It is equal.
They are both a complete, utter straw man.
No, it is not.
That is a complete, utter straw man, and you know it.
There is a universal theory of everything. What that universal theory of everything is, we're trying to determine. There is a best possible morality. What that best possible morality is, we're trying to determine.
No. I said best behavior. That's what I said.
That best behavior would be behavior that matches the best possible morality.
Would be a theory to try to match that best behavior. It would be the rules we set upon ourselves to match that best behavior.
That's the same fucking thing.
No, it's a substantial difference.
What is the point of having a moral system if nobody acts according to that moral system? That's like saying, we have this universal theory for everything, and yet we're not applying it to anything. What would be the point of having it in the first place if it's not being applied anywhere?
What? Yeah, you're talking way past me, man. Yeah, you're not understanding.
That happens all the time.
You're misunderstanding every fucking word I have. I'm saying.
No.
God damn.
No, you are misrepresenting what is going on.
No.
The idea of a universal theory of everything, which is the idea of tying gravity, relativity, and all these other phenomenons to explain why particles interact in the way that they do. That pursuit is the same as the pursuit of the best course of action, which would be the best possible morality.
Not even close.
Those two ideas are one and the same.
No,
morality is the best action in a scenario.
Want me to explain to you why it's not even close? Let me explain to you why it's not even close. The universal theory of everything, there is an answer independent of what our opinion is. The best possible behavior, that's just our fucking opinion. And if we disappear, it disappears.
And if we disappear, so does the universal theory of everything. The universal theory of everything only makes sense when humans are there to observe it and to apply it.
No. The universal theory of everything is a description on how the universe works.
Okay. This is a pointless, and this is actually not dealing with the central topic, so I'm just going to mute you, and you have fun with that. I'm not going to...
Yeah.
All right, we've already gone down too many rabbit holes here.
Let's just get back to the topic.
You leave the topic because you fucking lost your ass on it.
Let's just get back to the topic.
We've gone in circles on this, and your entire argument is circular in reasoning. You have to leave the possibility. The point of contention is morality could be subjective or it could be objective. You are completely ignoring the fact that it could be objective, and you say it's outright not objective in order to facilitate your responses.
No.
Your response only makes sense if it's the only possible way that morality can exist. Your response only makes sense as if objective morality is impossible.
If there is an objectively good behavior, if there is a universally good behavior that no one can disagree with, and guess what? There's all kinds of fucking
because people will disagree with the universal theory of everything. There are people who disagree with globe Earth. They're called flat earthers. They disagree with that. Oh shit! In order for objective science,
between
hey,
fuck
you.
With something and accepting something.
No, the people who disagree with it don't fit your view of what morality is, because people will disagree with everything.
Well, what's the objectively best behavior? What is it? Is it the Muslim behavior?
Don't fucking
they're the
know.
fastest growing religion on the face of the planet. Are they the objectively?
We don't know. The same way we don't know the universal theory of everything. Doesn't mean the universal theory of everything doesn't exist.
we have an idea how the universe works. All we're having to do is unite, special
and we have an idea of how morality works, which is why the majority of societies don't like murder and don't like rape.
What theories of morality are we trying to unite into one? What theories of morality are we trying to unite into one?
Well, we were trying to unite them into one until the idea of subjective morality came into being, which is about the 1930s, 1940s. Prior to that, we had the Enlightenment movement, which was trying to build this universal morality system, and which is where we got the idea of rights came into being during the Enlightenment. The idea of the non-aggression principle and things along those lines.
The objective morality on the basis of what a fucking Christianity. Yeah, good fucking luck.
It's not based on Christianity. The Enlightenment was a predominantly either deists or deists, not necessarily Christians, people who thought that God created the universe and left it to be what it was. That God is not an intervening God, which is not the God of the Christian Bible. So a lot of the founding fathers were deists. They thought God created the universe and let it go, wound it up and let it go according to its own devices. Ben Franklin was one of them, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, all deists. You can read this about from their writings. Thomas Jefferson wrote his own version of the Bible, cutting out all miracles and all divine interventions because he didn't think that was the God of reality. So the idea that it's Christian God that spurred morality when it comes to Enlightenment, John Locke, not Adam Locke, Adam Smith and John Locke. John Locke, to the best of my knowledge, was not a Christian. He was atheist based on what I've seen from his writings. I might be incorrect about this, but a lot of Enlightenment thinkers who brought about the idea of rights, Bastiat, not a Christian. Out of a lot of these thinkers, I think that are involved in this particular. So let's go. People who took it more in the modern era: Murray Rothbard, atheist; David Friedman, atheist; Walter Block, atheist; Stefan Molyneux, atheist. Jeff Deist, atheist. No, doesn't fucking matter. These are people who are talking about objective morality based on the ideas of the Enlightenment. The people who are moving this forward doesn't matter. Primarily, they are not Christian.
Yeah,
so
and,
the idea the idea of objective morality
people,
being solely from Christians is ridiculous.
People, they're going to have wildly differing ideas on what is the objectively good behavior to have.
No. They have the same core principles.
And then we have other people who have different core principles. And then we have other people who have different core principles. It's almost as if, what's the best behavior is subject to the principles of, whoever is in the room at the time.
No. In the same way that science changes and there's people who disagree about science facts. It's the same fucking thing.
No, absolutely not.
Disagreement does not change.
Morality will disappear if there is less than one moral agent.
Morality will disappear because if there's no humans or moral agents, because morality is specifically the behaviors between moral agents. Morality does not determine the actions of atoms. Yeah, it takes a moral actor in order for morality to have any purpose.
On our existence. So it is a
if you remove all moral actors, of course, it's like, okay, if you remove all atoms, quantum mechanics don't exist anymore. Because you removed all fucking atoms. It's the same fucking idea. How can you be this dense? Quantum mechanics explains actions between particles. Quantum mechanics explains actions between particles. Morality.
What is the objective best set of behaviors?
We don't know.
And this is going to go in circles. Ham, dude, do you want to talk about the original?
Okay, get the fuck out of my stream, man. Just go away. This is not the point of the stream. The point was to talk about nationalism versus civic nationalism. We started talking about objective morality and all this shit. And it's the same fucking argument we had on this months ago because you're too stupid to understand this concept.
Or you're too stupid to understand what's the best set of
quantum mechanics is the relationship between particles in the universe. If you remove all particles in the universe, Quantum mechanics doesn't exist. Morality is the relationship or the actions of moral actors. If you remove all moral actors, morality doesn't exist. It's the same. Numbers is explained, mathematics is the relationship between numbers and quantities.
Yeah.
If you remove all numbers and quantities,
Not
mathematics disappears.
Not even close. Mathematics, for example, is objectively true because, whatever answer you
if
get
there's no items, there's no quantities in the universe, mathematics doesn't exist.
No.
Yes. Mathematics does not exist without quantities. You need a quantity for mathematics.
No, all you need is a set of rules.
Ugh, okay. This is
Anyway.
in circles, completely irrelevant to the conversation. Going back to the border wall, going back to talking about the United States has to keep its own people in its primary concerns.
I'm hearing a lot of static in the background.
Yeah,
Oh.
and I don't know who that's from, but it's not from me
I'll
as
just
far
mute
as I can
myself.
tell. Alright. Ugh, man. Okay. And unfortunately, this does come to morality because you have to consider, is it better to take care of yourself or to take care of someone else? So, compare this to someone on a desert island. Someone on a desert island, if there's two people on a desert island, right? So one person is completely healthy and fit, and the other person is sick. The person who is healthy and fit can go and scavenge food for themselves and keep themselves alive, but in doing so, the person who is sick cannot feed themselves and will die. Does it make sense for the person who can feed themselves to spend all their time feeding the sick person, hoping that the sick person gets better? Because what is the most likely scenario, or the most likely outcome in that scenario, is that both people will die. If the person who is healthy and able feeds themselves and that's all they can do, and they keep doing that, they will most likely live, and the person who is sick will die. If they continue to sacrifice themselves for the benefit of the sick person or the injured person, both people will most likely perish. And that's the situation you find yourself in when countries put their own interest at secondary to the interest of people not inside their country, to the interest of foreign nationals, to the interest of other people that, yes, they're less fortunate, but in helping them, it is a detriment to yourself, making yourself not able to sustain yourself, and both sides will likely fall and crumble. That is the situation we find ourselves in, is sacrificing the healthy for the sick, where both the healthy and the sick will end up dying. Now there's this old adage, if you teach a man to fish, if you give a man a fish, he eats for a day. You teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. That's what we need to start doing for these other countries, and yet our approach to them is continually giving them our fish, as opposed to teaching them how to fish for themselves. If you want to help these other countries, the best way to do this is not to open our borders and just have them flood in and take what we have. It's to teach them how to build what we have in their own countries. The United States is not some magical place that just has an overwhelming abundance of resources, which is the reason we're a world power. There are other countries. Zimbabwe is the prime example of this. It is the breadbasket of Africa. It was the most plentiful in resources. It has diamond mines. It has cobalt. It has zinc. It has it's very fertile soil where they can grow a lot of crops, and yet is the poorest country in the world right now. Not because of a lack of resources there, but because they failed to adopt a mechanism by which they can sustain themselves. They failed to adopt the principles that made the United States. If Zimbabwe did the exact same thing the United States did, created a similar culture, a similar government, encouraged capitalism, encouraged independence and self-reliance, and they focused on their own best interest, as opposed to the social idea that they need to provide for everybody around them or provide for the less fortunate. If they say, okay, we need to get those who can provide for themselves, they should be their primary focus. We should make sure that they get the best possible options. If they focused on that sort of thing, Zimbabwe could rise to be a world superpower based on their inherent natural resources. They are in a similar situation, resource-wise, as the United States was when it was founded. If they simply adopted the same civic nationalism as the United States, Zimbabwe could rise to be, maybe not the equivalent because it's not the same size as the United States, but it could definitely be out along the same lines as Singapore and Japan and all these other countries who are tiny in comparison, but are big players on the economic market. Zimbabwe could meet that within, and it wouldn't take very long. You're talking about 40, 50 years, because that's how long it took for them to decline.
A question to Ham. What do you think of the civic nationalism versus ethnic nationalism thing?
Civic nationalism sounds fine, but ethnic nationalism can go fuck itself.
Exactly.
I agree. And ethnic nationalism is when people like Spencer, they act as if civic nationalism and ethnic nationalism are one and the same. And that's the problem, is they combine the two. It's like, yes, because historically the two there's been a big overlap, but the United States proved that the two are not one and the same. The two can be separated. And it's the civic nationalism that is more important than the ethnic nationalism.
S-Man, please fix your fucking mic. It sounds like you're next to a fucking waterfall.
Alright. And, so if countries, instead of trying to immigrate to the United States, instead they just fix their own problems at home. If they, instead of saying, oh, this is unsalvageable, this is unfixable, let's just abandon it, if they instead said, okay, what did we do wrong? What are other countries doing right? And Venezuela is a huge example for this right now, because right now their people are starving, and they still have massive oil wells. What they could do immediately, because those oil wells are publicly owned, they're socialized, they're owned by the state of Venezuela. Venezuela could lease those oil wells right now. They could save their country by simply renting those oil reserves to other countries. Have companies come in, build mines or derelicts, give them the promise that those efforts will not be overwritten by Venezuela, that they won't come and nationalize it again. Give them specific and set terms of, okay, you're renting it for this long. Come in, build your oil wells, drill up this oil, sell it off for a profit. It's all yours for a specific set of time. That could finance the country to the point where they could, okay, after that time period, we're going to take it back, and we're going to start drilling again, and we're going to do our own oil wells, and we're going to save Venezuela. That's what they could do right now. It wouldn't take very long. You're talking a period of 10 years.
Another thing that would save Venezuela is lift the sanctions we have on Venezuela.
No. That's the opposite of what I'm talking about. A country has to be personally independent. If they're continually relying on other countries,
no. I'm talking about sanctions.
Yeah,
like the United States has put sanctions on Venezuela that's hurting their economy.
Because their economy is based on trading with the United States and with other countries. They need to be independent. That's the entire view of nationalism to begin with, is independence. You cannot take care of other people, or you cannot work with other people unless you are independent yourself. You make yourself independent, and then your excess you can trade with other countries and other. Right now, Venezuela doesn't have excess. They don't even have enough to meet their immediate needs. How are they going to trade with other people? They don't have extra. They don't have enough as it is.
Ham is being extra.
Yeah, sanctions the United States place on Venezuela, that's to keep their corruption from infecting the United States. Oh, yeah.
Oh my god, America's probably one of the most corrupt nations on the planet. Are you kidding me?
Okay. That I'm not saying that we're not corrupt, but we are not currently eating pigeons and zoo animals.
But Venezuela's in the state that it's in because, one, yeah, it did over-rely on oil, and two, because of sanctions that have been placed on Venezuela.
They can rely on oil because they have lots and lots of oil, enough where they could sell it off and pay and buy food for themselves. If they did that, the United States would probably lift the sanctions because, hey, you're no longer nationalizing everything. Right now, if we trade with Venezuela, they will nationalize those trade routes, and that will hurt us and the people in Venezuela that we're trying to help. Until Venezuela changes its position, we cannot trade with them without hurting them. And likewise, it will hurt us in the process.
I saw a pretty good video about the crisis in Venezuela when they with the oil boom, and they were paying. They started using the money they got from that to pay for all these certain programs to help the poor, and then but it wasn't sustainable.
Yeah.
With just relying on oil, and it went down the shitter really bad, and whoever the fuck the current
right now,
is.
Venezuela is a money pit. Resources go in, nothing comes out. If the United States trades with them, with lifting these sanctions, resources will go in and nothing will come out. It will drain us. It's the same thing as like a sinkhole in your backyard. What you do is you don't start filling it in with dirt from your front yard. You close it off, you keep everything as far away from that sinkhole as possible, because you don't know how deep that sinkhole is, and basically you have to either cover it over with something that will hold, or you just basically just quarantine the area. And that's what we've kind of done right now with Venezuela, because Venezuela will just soak up any and all resources and create sinkholes in other areas. You have to cut off the bleeding, which was bleeding of resources into a infinite hole, or for all intents and purposes, an infinite hole. We don't know if there is ever an end to how much resources can be pumped into Venezuela to save it, because their system right now is using more resources than it can produce. They have to get to the point where they become stable and they're no longer soaking up more resources than they can use. And once they become independent, then we can start trading with them and we can get them out of we can build them up as a country. But as long as they are an infinite pit, we can't afford to. That's and the idea that our sanctions are what's keeping them poor and keeping them impoverished doesn't make any sense, because we don't trade with other countries that are just fine. We don't trade with other countries
because they trade with other countries.
Yeah, so what's stopping Venezuela from trading countries that aren't sanctioning them?
Because everyone else is just sanctioning them.
Yeah, the United States, so they have to rely on the United States. And the United States is the only savior for them, right? That no other country would possibly trade Venezuela for their food for their oil. No other country in the world, right?
Well, who else has as big of a need for oil as America?
Mm-hmm. Oh, plenty of other countries.
Well,
China is primarily agricultural. They produce a lot of food in China. China could easily trade Venezuela and get cheaper oil through Venezuela than they currently get from their current providers. China has a huge demand for oil and has a lot of food. Why doesn't China trade with Venezuela? Why does it have to be the U.S. that has to burden that cost? Now, if Venezuela made a deal with the U.S. where they actually traded oil for resources, and they abided by the terms of that,
EU has also hit Venezuela with sanctions.
Then maybe that should be a sign for them to change.
Yeah. Until they change, it's like Venezuela is like a drug addict right now. Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's just
no. Yeah. It's like a heroin addict, and as long as they are a heroin addict, you cannot keep giving them money because they will just go out and buy heroin. That's the situation Venezuela is in. The EU and the US have sanctioned
heroin. Food is now heroin.
That's fucking retarded.
No. Food is what they're trading for heroin. Food is what they're trading to keep their destructive policies in place. They're acting as if food, right? So if you give a heroin addict, if you give them food, they will turn around and trade it for drugs. Because drugs are more important than food. And then you will keep giving them food, and they'll turn around and trade it for drugs. And that's the situation Venezuela is in right now. They are addicted to social programs. We give them food, they'll turn around and trade it for the social programs. That's the situation they're in. Dumping food into them will not save them from starvation because they have an addiction to a detrimental policy. And until they get rid of that addiction...
Or stopping the sanctions on them will end discontinuing trade.
Yeah, that's what fixes all problems, right?
Yeah, if a man is bleeding to death, maybe like stop shoving the fucking knife into him.
No, sanctions is not the knife into them. If the detriment is self-inflicted, trading with them and enabling them, that's exactly what it is. Is enabling. Same as giving money to a drug addict. Same as giving food to a drug addict, and they trade that food for drugs. That's enabling their bad behavior that is killing them.
Yeah, except the United States enables bad behavior all over the fucking planet. So what's so fucking special about Venezuela? Oh wait, they try to help poor people. Oh, fuck poor people, I guess.
All right. Yeah. So the United States is not clean, right? It's not crystal clean. It's not. But at least we're not contributing to that. We shouldn't be contributing to any bad actors. We shouldn't be contributing to any self-destructive countries. I agree with that. The solution is not to, well, we gave to one drug addict and he's addicted to drugs, so let's give to all drug addicts. That's not the solution. The solution is, we're giving to drug addicts, stop doing that. Stop giving to any drug addicts.
What I'm saying is, we're giving a murderer guns and weapons and money, so he can go out and murder, and we're all worried about this guy who's, smoking weed every now and then. That's the United States of America right now.
And we should stop doing that. The solution is not to, give to the murderer and to the drug addict. And Venezuela is not a weed addict. Heroin addict is more appropriate. Because weed, you can't overdose on weed. You can overdose on social programs, which is what Venezuela did. Venezuela has used up all their veins. They've got track marks down their legs. They are vomiting in the streets and trading,
Or maybe they just need to have the sanctions lifted off of them so they can have an actual economy again.
The sanctions happened after they basically committed suicide. Right? They resolved themselves to live on the streets, and then the sanctions came.
Then the corporations will stop trading with them on their own. Isn't this the free market capitalism you want?
Hmm.
I mean, you're all about free market capitalism, except when it actually matters.
Okay, so the United States lifts its sanctions. No one trades with Venezuela. Okay. What does that fix?
It maybe allows for other corporations who may want to trade with Venezuela.
Well, what it does is opens up the United States to trade routes that are going to siphon resources out of the United States with little return.
What do you think our trading policy is like with China?
Well, we get stuff back. We actually had a deficit with China in that we import more from them than we give them. You're talking about having the opposite relationship with Venezuela, where we give them a bunch of stuff and we get nothing in return.
No, we get a whole bunch of money in return.
A whole bunch of money in return. You do realize Venezuela has it's going the route of Zimbabwe, where they're going to have $1 trillion bills that they wipe their ass with.
Or they could give us oil. I don't care.
Humane.
I don't think you understand the situation with Venezuela.
I don't think anyone on the right understands the situation with Venezuela.
They manage their
It's
finances.
all about socialism.
Okay.
Actually,
they manage their finances so poorly, they can't drill for oil that is there right now. They don't have the resources to build a drill, to drill the oil and refine it and sell the oil. They cannot do that as a country. And yet they refuse to let someone else take over those oil reserves and mine it for them or drill it out for them. That's the problem. If we trade with Venezuela, we don't get oil because they can't get the oil out of the ground. It's too expensive for them to get the oil out of the ground because they don't have any money. They blew it all on social programs.
I mean, they didn't. I think they didn't. They just didn't take into account like how long this oil boom would last, and they based, it's like any country or any state or whatever that relies on just one thing. It's like you don't know how long that boom is going to last before it collapses. I mean, and I was watching this from fucking Vox, and they explained this pretty well. So I looked into this, and they actually were explaining it rather well.
Vox, right?
Yeah, actually, they explained it,
because they don't have a skewed perspective on anything.
So I saw the situation, and I think I understand at least somewhat decently the issue with Venezuela, and I've not been screeching, "I'm a socialist." Jesus Christ, that sounds so fucking cancerous. But oh shit! Apparently, the Trump administration is going to be doing something regarding the president of Venezuela. I think they're going to add him to some list or some shit. Let me see if I can find the article.
Which they should. They should treat him as a terrorist threat to his own population.
I mean, with some of the shit he's pulling, no, he is definitely a terrorist.
Like with the actions Trump took against Assad, blaming Assad for using chemical weapons against his own population, what the president and the government of Venezuela has done to their people is 1,000 times greater than that. So they should be treated with equal, this guy is a threat to his population. I'm not saying the correct answer would be to launch Tomahawk missiles at Venezuela. That would be counterproductive.
It'd be John Bolton's solution.
Who's John Bolton? Actually, fuck it, I'll look it up.
But
John Bolton.
We need to
if there's like a grand marshal of the neocon parade, it'd be John Bolton.
Oh God, he's the national security advisor to the Trump administration. Oh,
exactly. That's why that's terrifying.
Oh Jesus.
No, it's terrifying because you strawman his actual position.
This guy served in the George W. Bush administration.
Okay, but does that mean that he would launch Tomahawk missiles at Venezuela?
I don't know if he would. I hope not. But
well, according to Ham, he would. So, but then everything Ham says, you got to take with a degree of that's coming from an idiot. So.
Actually, I'm looking at the page.
Are you talking to yourself, HUMANe?
I'm looking at the page right now.
Well, I'm talking to anybody who's like, oh yeah, anything Ham says, you gotta. Oh yeah, it's coming from Ham, the guy who says this and this and this. Okay, yeah, it's probably not reliable.
I'm looking at the page right now. He rejects the term neoconservative, calls himself just pro-American instead.
Yeah, of course he would.
All right,
okay. So just like Trump rejects the term white nationalist and says nationalist. As opposed, but he's not allowed to reject that term and not allowed to say no. This is a more accurate label.
Well, if he quacks like a duck, talks like a duck, shits like a duck, walks like a duck, and is a duck, it probably is a duck.
Yeah, which is why he made Ben Carson the head of HUD, and he's got several minorities in his.
God, Ben Carson's in a position of power. Jesus Christ.
I'm looking at this dude's
Yeah,
page.
it's because Donald Trump is a white nationalist, though. He hates black people so much he actually endorses them and campaigned for them and puts them in his cabinet. That's how much he hates black people. He's really bad at this white nationalism.
You know what a useful idiot is, right?
I'm talking to one right now.
Oh shit! But apparently this.
How dare you say that to S-Man?
Oh, kill yourself, Ham. Anyway, so John Bolton has actually served in every Republican administration since Ronald Reagan.
God.
This fucker is old.
Yeah, this guy's pretty much, largely responsible for the vast majority of our foreign policy and most of our interventions. He is the war hawk of the war hawks.
I don't know what it is, but part of me wishes there was a constitutional amendment to say you cannot be of a certain age to hold you can't be this old and hold public office. I'd say I don't know,
right,
65.
Well, you got to also consider it says advisor, right?
Yeah, just advisor.
He's not the one making any decisions. He's an advisor.
Except he did try to derail the North Korea talks.
And failed.
But
Okay,
still.
so, I forget. I think this was Alexander the Great. It might have been Alexander the Great. If not, it was some other Caesar or something like that. He purposefully put people in his cabinet that would disagree with him. People that he did not trust their advice, but just so that way he could hear opinions other than the ones he wanted to hear. Made sure that he did not surround himself with yes man. I think this was Alexander the Great, or maybe it was one of the Caesars. But purposely put his enemies or people who had opposing views into his council. Now, they didn't get to make any decisions. They just got to counsel him. And they got to tell him everything they wanted to say, everything that was warmongering, and he listened to their counsel, and he ignored their counsel. He went with whatever the best choice was. And if Trump has this guy in his administration, if Trump surrounded himself with just yes men, just people who agreed with him, that would be a problem for me. It sounds like he's trying to incorporate people from previous administrations, people from opposing viewpoints, as well as those who agree with him. So that way he gets the full arguments from all sides, so that way he can make the best possible choice. And even though this isn't actual, this is more fictional literature, if you read Game of Thrones, this is something Daenerys Targaryen is famous for doing in those books. Surrounding herself with people with various opinions, and she listens to all the council, those who agree with her, those who disagree with her, completely different perspectives, and then makes the ultimate best choice in the course of the books. And that's a sign of good leadership.
Except here's the problem.
It's fictional, I know.
You're assuming Donald Trump is intelligent enough to make such a decision.
And you're assuming he's not, even though that's exactly what he's been doing in business and finance for decades.
Oh God!
And he's bankrupted himself. He bankrupted his companies 4 times.
Hey Ham, isn't it true that because I remember there's a few documentaries I've seen on Trump, and I've done some reading.
I think it was 5 times he bankrupted his companies.
There was at least a couple times.
How many companies has he had? Has he had only 5?
I don't know. How many companies has Jeff Bezos bankrupted?
No. Well, Jeff Bezos has only had the one company, the Amazon.
Oh my God! It's almost as if Jeff Bezos is a better billionaire.
I'm not saying he's not, but Jeff Bezos is his Amazon and Amazon subsidiaries. Trump has had multiple organizations. He's had at least over 15 different companies. Of those 15, only 1/3 of them have...
Pause for a second.
It's probably more than 15. I don't know the exact number.
How is the Niagara Falls?
Shut the fuck up.
All right. Out of the more than 15 companies, only 1/3 of them have filed bankruptcy, and those were temporary bankruptcies. As far as I know, only 3 of his companies have actually closed down. He started more than a dozen of them, and I think it's more than 15, if I'm not mistaken. But you are accounting that as failure for someone, saying Jeff Bezos is a better billionaire. Jeff Bezos is the richest man in the world. Find a better billionaire. You're not going to find one.
John D. Rockefeller.
Okay, John D. Rockefeller during his time was equivalent of a trillionaire.
Yeah. But here's the thing. You know, Donald Trump
Rockefeller
is not a fucking
Rockefeller
genius
had
40 chess player.
Rockefeller had businesses that failed.
Trump is a constant pathological liar, con man. His Trump University thing.
Okay.
He got sued at the wazoo. He had to settle out of court because he knew he was going to lose. I mean, just pick a business he's had involvement with and just find the absurd corruptions. He doesn't pay his contractors. He does all this heinous shit. Hell, I read a story a while ago.
Well, if you know how to do it, you make your own company and you run it better.
Sure, just give me $1 billion to start with.
He didn't start with $1 billion.
Yeah. Well, he pretty much did.
No, he didn't.
Yeah, he got all kinds of handouts from his daddy. He got paid tens of millions of dollars. He was given tens of millions of dollars
No.
by his daddy before his dad died.
Okay. Okay, so if he can take tens of millions of dollars and turn it into at least over 10 billion, or possibly over let's just go with low numbers. Okay, 10 million to 1 billion. So by that same factor, you should be able to take $100 and turn that into what? Let's see, 10 million. You should multiply that by 100, right? So if you could take $100, you should be able to turn that into $10,000. Comparatively, right?
Let's see. What was net worth? June 1999.
You should be able to take, if you are a better businessman than Trump, you should be able to take $100 and turn that into $10,000. If you know how to run companies better than he does, if you are better and he's just a liar and he's just a manipulator and he's just evil and he doesn't know what he's doing, do it better. Take $100 and turn it into $10,000. That's the equivalent of what he did, taking $1 million or whatever, 10 million, according to your review, turning it into $1 billion. Right? You should be able to take $100 and turn it into $10,000, no problem. Because if it's that easy.
And he wasn't even listening. Great.
No, probably wasn't listening.
No,
if you know how to, this is you're Ocasio-Cortez. I know how to do it better, and I'm like, well, then do it better. And nope, I can't do that. It should you should be able to take $1,000 and turn it into $1 million. That's
why
really easy, right?
How?
Anybody should be able to take $1,000 and turn it to $1 million because Trump did it. Because Trump is an idiot. Trump doesn't know what he's doing. Trump is incompetent. Trump is a liar.
He had the benefit of having millions and millions of dollars, getting constantly, bailed out of his failed businesses.
No, because so why did he succeed? There's other businesses that do go, like Blockbuster, Toys R Us just went out of business. Where was their bailout? Why did Trump succeed and they didn't?
Have you not heard the story behind the Toys R Us failure? They were basically run into the ground by the managing company. Basically, venture capitalism.
Okay, so Trump is better at running his business than the managers of Toys R Us were better at running theirs, or than the Toys R Us executives were running theirs.
No, Toys R Us was being bled dry. They were purposely being failed.
Yeah, which means Trump's better than them. Right?
Holy fuck.
Oh my... Ass-man, fix your fucking mic!
Your idea was that he started off with millions, and it's easy to get billions from millions. It's not. It is not.
Thing.
But yeah, that's exactly what you said.
My microphone. I tried to fix it.
That's exactly what you said. He was like, oh, the only reason he's a billionaire is because his dad gave him millions to start off with. As if it's easy to go from millions to billions. And I was like, well, if it's easy and Trump is so incompetent and managed to do it, other people with millions or even thousands should be able to do the same.
His daddy was worth $300 million. He was like 1/3 the way there.
Yeah, 1/3 of the way to $1 billion. Tripling your income when you're talking about millions. Now, tripling your income when you're talking about $1. If I have $1 in my pocket, it's really easy to turn that into $3. $3 is... Now, if I have $1,000 in my pocket, it's really difficult to turn that into $3,000. If I have $10,000, it's really difficult to turn that into $30,000. If I have $1 million, it's really difficult to turn... It's near impossible for me to turn that into $30 million. Or, sorry, $3 million. If I have...
How? You do the same thing you did to turn the $1 into $3 that you did.
No. Because $1 is easy. I can sell something. People will buy sticks of gum or whatever. They will buy candy bars for $1. Dollars are easy. You know how many dollar candy bars it would take to get 1 million? Well, 1 million. You'd have to sell 1 million candy bars. How easy is it to sell 2 candy bars versus selling 1 million candy bars?
Mars Bars has made a fucking bank on selling candy bars.
Wow, you are... Okay. You are not Mars. You are not Mars Bar. You can go to a like this is something Boy Scouts do, and Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts and school fundraisers sell candy bars. Can they compete with Mars Corporation? No, they can't. You can compete with the Boy Scouts and their school fundraisers. You can't compete with the Mars Corporation.
Well,
You as an individual, you could make $2 selling candy bars. You as an individual cannot make $1 million selling candy bars.
Except here's the thing: we don't actually make the candy bars. We're more like a reseller. We'd be competing with like the convenience stores and the supermarkets. We just buy.
How does that change the situation?
Kind of makes it categorically different.
No,
We're not the manufacturer. We're just a reseller.
I'm talking about reselling candy bars. Oh yeah, you're gonna actually sit there in your kitchen and make a fucking candy bar and wrap it and then sell it at the store for $1? Who is gonna buy your turd nugget? No.
Oh, gee.
You buy a candy bar for 10 cents or whatever from the manufacturer. You sell it for $2. That's on top. This is what
Twix
fundraisers
manages
do.
to stay in business. Twix manages to stay in business.
Twix?
Have you seen their Have you seen their candy?
Twix?
It looks
Have you
like a
seen the label on the back of Twix? You do
Have you
realize
seen- have you
Twix
seen the
is not its own
candy?
company.
Have you actually seen the candy bar? It looks like a fucking turd.
I'm looking this up just to make sure.
That was the whole
Twix
joke.
is owned by Mars Incorporated. Oh man,
God, you're so autistic.
Didn't see that
you can't
coming.
even get a joke.
Oh Jesus, Ham.
who is going to buy ham candy bars?
No,
Who is going to buy
no.
your branded candy bars? Now you can go to a store and you can buy Twix candy bars for less than what you plan on selling them for, and you can sell them and you can make a couple of bucks. You cannot turn around and sell those candy bars and end up make $1 million out of that. You're going to have to do other things to make $1 million.
Oh
You
no,
cannot-
you
you cannot buy candy
wanna know
bars for-
how- Well, you want to know? Okay.
Okay.
You start off small at school. You sell candy bars. Then you go off to the neighborhoods. Then you go to fucking concerts, sitting out in the parking lot, handing candy bars out to fucking hungry patrons.
Oh,
And then-
it's like it gets exponentially harder as you go, and it takes exponentially more investment and more time and more effort as you go.
No.
Huh.
Same investment.
No,
You start off
it's
with
not
the
the same
initial
investment.
You have a profit.
No.
With
Okay.
that profit,
All right.
you invest in your own.
Okay.
You,
As
you
someone who
invest in
doesn't
your
run
small
their own
business
business and who
it just
doesn't do
grows
anything.
bigger and bigger.
Okay, someone who is currently doing this type of process, to someone who has no fucking idea and who works in a shipping or whatever you do. Okay,
I work in shit.
so you start off with $1. You take that $1, you buy 2 candy bars for 50 cents a piece. You take those 2 candy bars, you sell them for $1.50. Yay, you made $2. You turned $2 or $1 into $3. Congratulations, you tripled your income. You're now a millionaire, right? No, you're not. You've got $3. You take the same $3. You buy 6 candy bars. You take those candy bars. You're now selling 6 candy bars for $1.50 a piece. That you keep, but in order to keep making progressively more money, you have to keep investing more. Your original investment was $1. Your secondary investment, $3. Your next investment is going to be $9. Well, actually, let's see. 6 times $1.50, right? Yeah, $9. If you stop investing if you keep investing $1, the most you're ever going to make is $2. You're like, oh, I invested $1, I made $2. And I have $3 total now. I invest $1, I make $2 off of that. I invest $1. That slows down your entire process. In order to keep ramping up,
the
you have
money
to,
that you got from that initial $1 investment.
which is more of an investment because you could sell 0 candy bars and lose the entire thing. It gets exponentially more expensive, more investment, more product that you have to then sell more of. It gets exponentially harder the longer it goes. It does not get easier. It gets
Not
harder.
really. Not really.
Yes.
No.
Yes, it does.
You just gotta be smart.
No. It gets harder and harder as it goes. There is no smart. If it was smart and easy like you claim it would be, everybody would be doing this. Everybody would be a billionaire. If it's so easy, Ham could do it. So why doesn't Ham do it? It's
Why
so
don't
easy.
you do it?
I'm doing it right now. I took $1,000 and I turned it into $3,000, and then I reinvested that $3,000, and I'm probably gonna. I'm looking or hoping by the end of the year to turn that into at least $12,000. That's what I'm doing right now. And by the end of the spring, that $3,000 investment should net me a total of over $24,000. So, I'm doing what I claim the process is, and this is the process that I've been going through. I started off with an initial investment into my company of $300. That was my investment. That's all I could afford at the time. I've had other people invest in, and we built up to a little bit over $1,000. And then I had an opportunity come by, and I was willing to drop $1,000 on it, and I actually ended up, not spending the full 1,000 at that opportunity, but ended up spending the rest of the 1,000 later. And now I have, once I liquidate all my assets, I should have close to $30,000 through the entire process. That's my initial investment was $300, and if things go well over the next few months, that $300 over the course of a year will have turned into $30,000. That's ridiculous. And then I'm going to take that $30,000, I'm going to reinvest in my company and into Funfair, and hopefully turn that into, six figures by, a year or two. That's my plan. That may be pipe dream. That may not be possible, and maybe my projections all fall through, and I end up making half of that. Half of that is still amazing. Half of that is better than any other investment I can make at this point. Even a tenth of that is better than most investments I could have made with that $300. Now, the amount of time and energy it has taken to get all this set up and into motion, that has been a nightmare. But considering I would have had to put time and energy into anything else, the rate of return, still better than anything else I could have put my time and energy and money into. Now, if you think it's so easy, you should be able to do...
Yeah, I never said
You
it
should
was
be able to
easy.
take something like, you should be able, like, hey, if I did this on an initial budget of $300 and I got to this point in about a year where I'm investing $3,000 in what I hope to turn around to possibly $30,000, you should be able to do that much faster because you're so much better at this than me, and you understand economics so much better than me or S-Man or even Donald Trump, because you have enough knowledge where you can condemn us and Donald Trump and say, oh, we're stupid and we just got handed everything. If you're so much better at this, you should be able to do, you should be able to take $30.
When did I ever say I was better at business than you or Trump?
That's implied in the way that you talk down
No,
to
no.
both of it. Yeah.
I can laugh at someone
you're
for
saying-
being stupid, even if I don't know because anything about business, because I don't claim to be a businessman. I don't claim to be a fucking genius when it comes to business, which Trump does.
Which he is. That's what
No,
I'm
he's
saying.
not. He's not a genius. He's a fucking corrupt motherfucker.
No, he's a financial genius. You don't
And,
get to be where he is.
and he's a corrupt motherfucker.
I'm not going to say he's not corrupt.
He's massively corrupt. Like
But
he's
financial
got,
genius, financial and genius and corrupt are not diametrically opposed. So he can be both. I don't see the problem there. I mean, I do see a problem in that he's possibly corrupt. I don't know the level of corruption, but I don't see the issue of, he can't be a financial genius because he's corrupt. I don't see that dilemma.
Being corrupt kind of negates being a financial genius, because you're not being
Elon Musk
successful because
is-
of your genius. You're being successful because you're basically cheating.
Elon Musk is cheating and Elon Musk is corrupt, but he's still a financial genius. Zuckerberg, same thing. financially a genius, or at least when it comes to what he's done with Facebook and what he's managed to turn that into, but still corrupt.
Yeah.
Okay. Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos, financially a genius, corrupt as hell. The only person in that sphere.
These people, become massively rich by the same old shtick that's been used since billionaires first started existing. They underpay their workers.
The only one that I know of who's actually seems to be an all-around good guy is the founder of Whole Foods. I've heard various lectures from him, and seems like he has run that company by the book, above board, no corruption that I can see in anything that he's done, and anybody who criticizes him is usually about something stupid that ends up working out for his employees in the long run.
He's a racist!
I've never heard anybody saying anything about him mistreating his employees, underpaying them. The only situation was when he switched from health insurance to health savings plans. People criticized that originally, and there's a huge fight over it. But once people started seeing the impact of the health savings plans and how much they were saving and how much it was actually putting back in their pockets, the employees that fought against it ended up converting over to it. So that's the only issue that I know of concerning Whole Foods. And that guy seems to be running an ethical company, doesn't seem to be relying on government bailouts, doesn't rely on underhanded practices that his competitors cannot follow. Seems to be above board across, everything he's doing, and he's successful. So that guy is kind of like if you're looking at successful financial people, he should be kind of like the gold standard. If people should be emulating him as much as possible. And he's given enough lectures on how he got there and what he did to get there. Should be easy to follow.
I'm not laughing at you, human, I promise, but I just saw something in the chat.
Oh, what?
So the idea that Donald Trump, though, is not a financial genius because, everything was just handed to him. He more than doubled his money when he started. That's a tenfold, right? If he started off with, he's said that he started off with $2 million or maybe $1 million financial loan that he had to pay back, but turning that $1 million into several billion.
Oh my God, S-Man! Fucking mute yourself.
Even if he started off with $50 million, turning $50 million into $3 billion is something very few people could do.
I don't know what's the problem with my mic, you fucking idiot.
Okay. A very good example of this, professional athletes and lottery winners. They make millions.
Okay, I'm going to have to leave because S-Man's mic is giving me a fucking migraine.
All right. And also, we've completely derailed from the main topic at hand, but lottery winners and athletes, they become overnight millionaires. How many of them go bankrupt? How many of them turn that $1 million into billions? Okay, what about rappers, right? Pop stars. They become millionaires, right, overnight? How many of them go on to turn that into billions? Ooh. The only one who's even close is Beyonce and Jay-Z, and that's because they're, a couple, and they've actually started businesses. I think maybe Kanye might be kind of close to the $1 billion mark, maybe, because he's got various other businesses. He's a record producer. He's got royalties when it comes to other people's music. Starting various business, clothing lines. Oh, that's how you get to that mark. Yeah. So, considering how many people are gifted millions, and how many people turn those millions into billions, the number of actors who get paid multiple millions per movie, like Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt, how close are they to becoming a billionaire? Oh, they're not? Even getting multiple millions per movie? Still not a net worth over $1 billion? They couldn't do what is so easy for the incompetent idiot Donald Trump to do. They couldn't do that same thing, even though they're getting multiple times what Donald Trump started off with in a single year, right? Brad Pitt has been paid over $100 million for a single movie. A single movie that he shot over the course of 6 weeks. 6 weeks in a year made over $100 million. Can't seem to turn that into a several billion dollar company, right? Oh, but
Yeah.
it's so easy, right? It's so easy. Anybody could do this. That's the Ham perspective or the Dunning-Kruger perspective. If it's so
Yeah.
easy, all of these millionaires should be billionaires more so than Donald Trump, because Donald Trump is incompetent and doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the Dunning-Kruger, oh, it's so easy, but when you're asked to do it yourself, I'm like, well, if it's so easy, you should be able to do it. If he's so incompetent, he's so bad, he's so stupid, he doesn't know what he's doing. No. This is the thing, is like, I know I don't like the idea of Trump playing 4D chess. Trump is smarter than he projects himself to be, and Scott Adams has talked about this pretty extensively, about how Trump is a master manipulator. And whether it's inherent, it's natural to him, or if it's a learned behavior, we don't know. We just know that he's really good at manipulating a situation. And part of that is people underestimate him because they look at him the same way Ham does, that he's an idiot. He doesn't know what he's doing.
The Cult of Ham effect, or the Ocasio-Cortez effect.
Yeah. Trump is like a magician in that he gets people to focus on the inconsequential.
You alright?
Oh, man.
HUMANE is gonna.
Yeah.
Rip
Sorry for all the
HUMANE.
coughing on stream. I'm getting over a cold. I'm hopefully at the tail end of it. Because I'm no longer, don't have a fever, and that's why streams have been not happening.
Radically, yeah.
So I still got some phlegm in my throat that needs to be cleared up, but
Yeah.
sorry about that. I'm not getting emotionally choked up here. All right, so he's really good at getting people to focus on the inconsequential while he's making big deals in the background. That, like a magician, focus on my one hand while the other hand is doing the real magic trick. Focus on the lady dance, the scantily clad lady dancing on stage, or like David Copperfield likes to do, the shadow puppetry of, the elaborate dance move behind a curtain. That's not real. What you're focusing on is his silhouette behind a curtain. He's not behind that curtain anymore. That silhouette is a projection of a pre-scripted event that takes longer, so that way he can go underneath the floor or wherever he needs to go. He's had, like, that shadow or whatever, that silhouette will be up on the screen for like 45 seconds to a minute. The time it took him to get underneath that was like 5 seconds, so he's got an extra 55 seconds to go anywhere on the stage or wherever he needs to be while you're still focused on that silhouette. Because that's what magicians do. That's the same kind of thing Donald Trump is. Donald Trump has everybody focusing on whatever stupid thing he said on Twitter. Meanwhile, he's making these big plays behind the scenes and people don't realize the big play until, hey, the magic trick's already done. Here's the big reveal. That's why Trump's a master manipulator. Whether you think he's incompetent or not, nobody gets lucky this much. Nobody the Korea situation, all these things playing out to the benefit of Trump over his presidency. Nobody is that lucky. At some point, people have to look at it and say, oh, there's some degree of competency. We can't see where that competency is, but that's because we're focused on all the wrong things. And this is, it's very Machiavellian, right? Because that's the idea of Machiavelli is Machiavelli played the fool, and people thought he was less intelligent than he was. So that way he could do all of these really incredible, intelligent things behind people's backs, and they wouldn't know it until it was too late, and they wouldn't realize it was him. That's the part of the... I'm not all that familiar with Machiavelli myself. I just know that's the idea behind him is super intelligent, playing the fool, downplaying his intelligence, getting people to focus on things other than what he actually wanted them to focus on, or other than what he was actually doing, so that way he could manipulate things behind the scene and it wouldn't look like he had any hands in it. This is part of the reason why I think Peter Baelish was my favorite character on Game of Thrones until, I don't know if the books did this or if it was just the TV series that completely bastardized his character, Because in the book series, he is really good at manipulating a situation to make it look like, to even if people pulled the threads and got to the source of it, they wouldn't find him. He is good at manipulating other people to get what he wants without appearing like he had anything to do with it. And he does this throughout the book series, although it's a little more... in the TV show, it's too clumsily. He's too blatant about what he's doing. Like, he actually is on the rescue boat for Sansa, and you're like, dude, no. In the book series, he is on a completely different area of the continent. He has no ties whatsoever, and yet he manipulated that entire scenario to get her on the boat, to get her to where he is, without anybody realizing who she is or where she is. And yet, in this TV show, he's on the freaking boat, and I'm like, dude, all of this master planning could go up in smoke if one person on that boat mentions, oh yeah, by the way, that's where Peter Baelish was, he was on that boat. Stupid. And eventually, I mean, in this TV show, he just gets stupider as the series goes on, but he starts off being incredibly manipulative and intelligent. But, he was my favorite character because I thought the direction he was going was to tear down the entire monarchy. But, I mean, I would... Given his character arc in this book series, that should be his motivation, is to destroy the monarchy because it's an inefficient system that leads to people in his situation being ignored and mistreated, even though he's got a lot of merit, even though he's essential towards so many people ruling, controlling their power, and, he's a big player in what happens in that country's ruling, or what happens. But he doesn't get any recognition for that, and instead they look at him like, oh, he's just a petty commoner, comes from lowborn or whatever, and he's got to work his way up through through their inefficient political system. And so you'd think someone with that kind of mind would be like, okay, the system's broken, burn it all to the ground and rebuild. That should be the mindset, and yet for some reason the TV show started steering away from that. It was just like, oh no, he just wants to, wants a relationship with Sansa, and he wants to become king himself. And I'm like, dude, that doesn't solve his issue. That's not somebody with that story arc. He doesn't want to become king. To become king is the antithesis of everything he stood for to that point forward. He wants to be behind the scenes controlling things. If he's king, everybody knows he's in charge. That completely undermines all of his areas of expertise. Would mean nothing at that point. If everybody knows he's the one manipulating things, if everybody knows he's the one controlling things, he has no advantage anymore. If he's wearing the crown, all of his influence, all of his manipulation, all of his behind-the-scenes stuff goes away. He has to be behind the scenes controlling things. That's his secret to success. The only system where he could actually be in charge like that would be a system that is actually merit-based. But as long as there's a kingship and a monarchy, it's not based on merit, it's based on lineage, it's based on social standing, and that completely goes against who he is and how he got to where he is. Anyway, that's my rambling about that particular thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's a very Machiavellian figure in that series, because people underestimate him. And people underestimate Machiavelli because he played himself off as being less intelligent than he was. People underestimate Peter Baelish. People underestimate Donald Trump, and it's all the same thing. Now, Machiavelli ended up being a pretty corrupt and evilish kind of guy. Peter Baelish in the series, yes, not a moral character. Actually pretty amoral, and most of the time acting against the moral characters. Donald Trump, I'm comparing him to Machiavelli and Peter Baelish in this situation. I don't think he's like this moral, pure standard. I do think he's doing more good than harm, but I don't think that makes him completely innocent or completely he's not the good guy. He's the anti-hero, and that seems to be the only hero that could possibly work in our current society. And as that anti-hero, at least he is a nationalist. He doesn't have Donald Trump's best interest right now. He's actually putting himself to the side for the best interest of the country, that's something pretty rare given the political economy of the United States today, and especially the political environment of most of the world. He's putting his own personal standing, his own reputation, his own financial situation, he could have just kept running his businesses and just paying both sides like he was previously doing. And yet he chose to kind of step aside from all of that to ensure the success of the country. He put national interest ahead of his own interest. And yes, that's it's kind of been a bit of blowback against his family and things along those lines. But it hasn't been to the detriment where his family is, like, in prison or, is being tortured or anything. His reputation damaged, put them under immense stress and things along those lines. Not ideal, but it's a lesser trade-off than taking food directly from their mouths and giving it to. So it's not as if he's made his family financially destitute in order to save the country, because his family's still provided for. His family's still independent, just less so independent than they used to be. So it's a small sacrifice in order to help the nation as a whole. That's something pretty rare, especially when other leaders of other countries are not only sacrificing themselves and their own reputation, they're sacrificing their the people who elected them. They're sacrificing their own country's benefit for the benefit of somebody else who has nothing to do with them, giving everything that they have and sacrificing and hurting their own populations, hurting their own families, hurting their own people severely to benefit someone else. That's a huge problem. That's this big. So I think we talked about a lot of the topics concerning all these various. We talked about immigration, the border wall, although it got sidetracked with that whole ham debate. That guy.
The attention span on that is just like, HUMANE just answered that, then he keeps repeating the question. It's like, at that point,
Yeah.
At that point, it was like, then it's just going to go in circles. Like, I've gotten to the same debate over different issues at hand.
Circular reasoning, and in order to have a honest debate, both sides have to acknowledge they could be wrong. Ham is unwilling to make that. Even to give the illusion of that.
Oh yeah, he called when we were on the whole personality stream when we were talking about free education, healthcare, whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
He called your brother an idiot, and he was pretty much saying, because he would just basically, anti-libertarian stereotypes, and it would just have this dishonest way of going about the argument and acting as if you don't agree with Medicare for all or free college or whatever, that automatically you are wrong and that you're an idiot.
And his bastardization of people who are legitimate scientists who have testified in front of Congress that had nothing to do with tobacco and Philip Morris and all that sort of thing. Those people who disagree with the consensus about science, he's like, oh yeah, they're all hypocrites and they're all the crazy people. I'm like, there's Nobel laureates. There's people who have Nobel prizes in their various fields who disagree with the climate scientists. There are people who have testified in front of Congress who were praised for their scientific prowess until they looked at the evidence and were like, no, the evidence doesn't support what you're saying about climate change. And they testified to Congress, and they've gone on in various lectures and talked about all the various things. Those people get blacklisted and blackballed and treated as if they're not actual scientists. And you're like, that's not what you were saying about them a year ago. One particular lady who was actually on the IPCC, is it the International Climate Change, or is it International Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC. She was one of the participants in that until ClimateGate. I don't know if you know what that is. That's where it was revealed that various emails were being passed by these organizations that are collecting scientific data on climate change. And there's emails being sent back and forth that were released due to the Freedom of Information Act. So these emails were requested. So a lot of these emails were deleted after the fact and were recovered on backup servers and things like that. But these are emails being passed back and forth between these scientists where they're actively deleting data from the results because that data doesn't fit their model. And she looked at the results and saw these emails going back and forth and saw the corruption of the data because she was basing her view on things based on the data provided. And she was like, yeah, based on the data and the evidence, yeah, climate change is real. But after seeing those memos and seeing how the data was manipulated before it got to her, she started looking at the other evidence like, uh-oh, we need to review everything. And she has now come out against climate change and used to be on the IPCC. Her name is still on those reports. She is now blacklisted by that community. She has also testified before Congress, and she is now treated as an outcast and as somebody who has no valid scientific opinion, even though they use her name as part of that 97% consensus. That's what's going on right now when it comes to climate change, and people like Ham are just like, oh no, those are all crazy people who have nothing. I'm like, yeah, that's, I guess if you only believe leftist sources, instead of listening to these people talking about their situation directly, actually looking at their credentials, looking and verifying what they claim, which is something somebody who's actually interested in the truth should do, you look at the claims of these people. I mean, everything that I've said so far, you can look at, there's so much evidence on YouTube, there's so much evidence on various forums, on the IPCC's actual results themselves. You can go and research all this stuff yourself. Prove me wrong. Show me where I am incorrect in my statements here. This is the sort of thing that Ham should be doing if he actually believes what he says, instead of just dismissing it as if it's obvious, because it's not obvious when the evidence doesn't support it. Anyway, but that's going back to the topic of nationalism. There's so many people who dismiss the idea that we need to protect ourselves based on similar things. They've got the same viewpoint as Ham. It's like, oh, no. Anybody who says that we need to protect ourselves, they just hate foreigners. And I'm like, no, it's not a hate for foreigners. It's the, if we die, everybody dies. Because right now, we're the only ones who are self-sufficient. If we lose our ability to be self-sufficient, we can't help anybody else. As much as we would want to, we cannot help anybody else if we cannot provide for ourselves. So we need to ensure our own stability, and then we can start thinking about other people. It's that message, right? The when oxygen masks fall in a plane. This is the safety warning if you've ever taken a flight. Yeah. Secure your own mask before securing the masks of your children. Because if you can't breathe and you pass out, you die and your children die. That's the message. Secure your own mask before helping others put their mask on. If you cannot breathe, if you can't secure your own mask, how can you possibly help someone else? Mm-hmm. That's the idea of a nationalism, is securing your own oxygen mask. You secure your own mask, and then you are free to help other people put on their own oxygen masks. You don't take off your oxygen mask and give it to them. You don't put on their oxygen mask while you pass out. You secure yourself, and then you help other people. That's the formula. And that's the formula that leftists and all these crazy people are forgetting. And they're like, oh, let's take off our oxygen mask and give it to other people, and then they pass out because they're stupid, and then everybody dies, and then that's what the inevitable unintended consequences of all of their policies and what they want, because they don't see that, oh, the only thing keeping us alive is our nationalism. Without that, if we get rid of our nationalism to help all these other people, we die, they die, everybody loses. Mm-hmm. At least if we're independent, if we're a strong civic national, because, I mean, this is I guess we didn't touch too much on this, is the United States likes immigrants who fit our civic, who are willing to follow our rules. We like legal immigrants. We don't like illegal immigrants because I've already shown that they're not willing to follow the rules of our civic organization. It doesn't and yet, for some reason, leftists are like, oh, it's all about their skin color or their nationality. No. It has nothing to do with that. It's everything like, okay, if you're going to be a part of this civic community, you need to follow the rules that everybody else follows. If you can't do that, you don't belong here.
Yeah.
It's a really simple policy. It has nothing to do with skin color, has nothing to do with language, has nothing to do with ethnic origin, has nothing to do with... It has everything to do with, if you are going to participate, follow our rules. And that's, hey, if you're going to put the oxygen mask on, put it on right. Make sure it's secure. Make sure it's actual oxygen flowing through to get to to get to you. And then, hey, you're free to help other people put on their oxygen masks and join you. And then those other people, once they got their oxygen masks secure, they can help other people. That's the goal. That is the plan, and that's what the United States was doing for a good while until we started helping people at our own expenses. We started sacrificing our own independence, our own sustainability for the sake of other people. And it reduced our ability to take care of ourselves, and it limits our ability to take care of others. Or to help other people take care of themselves, more likely. Anyway, I've gone on too many rants.
Yeah, this will probably be a good idea to wrap up.
Yeah, a good idea to wrap up. Last idea that I wanted to say is ethno-nationalist is just stupid. We've gone over that plenty of times. We've been talking about Richard Spencer and all that sort of thing. It's stupid to think that someone, just because they share your ethnicity, is going to share your civics, when that's clearly not the case. There's plenty of other people who share the white identity of the United States who have completely opposed values, and they would not follow the United States civic rules. There's people leftists per se, like, they're trying to let other people in, breaking our rules, and I'm like, you live here, you're the same skin color as the majority of people in the United States, and yet you're breaking our rules by saying, hey, come on in, ignore our rules. Yeah, that's Spencer, ignore those people as if, oh yeah, but they're the same skin color, they're gonna have the same values. No, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
So that's last thought.
And suggestions next week.
Next week I think we should start talking about immigrants that immigrants that are more American than you. I think that'll be a good topic for next week, because we just start talking about that. And I want to mention some people who are either trying to immigrate to the United States or who are better at being American than natural-born citizens. So if you've gotten examples of, go ahead and mention those, or start building a list of people who are like, yeah, this guy's an immigrant, or this lady's an immigrant. They could be white, they could be black, whatever the situation is, just immigrants that embody the American spirit. Or people that you would like to see immigrate to the United States for whatever reason. So that'll be what we'll talk about. Oh, I wish, man, dude. I saw that comment there. I am not sure what it would take for that. Maybe once I get my my $30,000 capital for my company, and I start, maybe I can have some kind of, I could set aside some of those funds as part of that initiative. And if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, that is definitely going to be a subject that'll come up next week.
Oh, Jesus.
So it's something S-Man wrote in the comments of the Hangout, which I'm pretty sure is not visible on the actual stream.
I'm dying. And humanist black hole.
Yeah, it's cut off on the actual stream. All right, I'll very briefly mention this. So there is a YouTuber named Barbara for UTC. I have talked about how amazing she is on several streams. Right now, she is not in the United States, and I would start a fund to try to get her back in the United States, and we'll start the give HUMANE a chance with Barbara fund.
Oh, Jesus. But yeah, so
Yeah.
while HUMANE gets that going,
Well, I mean, that was like one of the first things I said on the Worski Live, right? The end of it, and I was stupid enough to say that when we were still live instead of waiting after the fact. Yeah.
Okay, now.
Well, then
now
the Worski being the pig that he is like, oh, yeah, you would smash. And I'm like, dude, that's not the right way to. I mean, of course I would smash, but that's not the way you. Dang it. This is live. Yeah, that's not the way you present it.
Oh, now I know what I'm gonna be doing later on is looking in that stream now.
No. Yeah,
Oh.
she is more American than 99% of people that live in America. And she's Slovenian. Doesn't matter. Well, same country that what's her name? Melania Trump is from. But yeah, there's apparently a lot of good-looking women from Slovenia. Apparently.
Yeah.
Anyway, but it's not just the looks; it's the personality and the adorkableness and everything all put together. You're like, that's exactly the type of woman I'm looking for. Anyway.
I am terrible.
Don't know what that means.
He'll be
okay.
into her DMs. It's like slide.
He'll be Slovenian into her DMs. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. Sliding into okay. So I must specify it's not as unrealistic as say somebody who has a celebrity crush on like say what's her name? Kate Upton or Taylor Swift or some let's see. Who else? Like trying to think of who's like a big name and like as far as like attractive women.
Halle Berry? I don't know.
No, not Halle Berry anymore. I'm trying to think of who's like the up and coming, like, like the poster that everybody's got on their ceiling. So I'd say, okay, yeah, it's completely off topic, and yeah, it is time for me to shut up. But I will be talking about Barbara in the next week because we're talking about people we'd like to see immigrate to the United States, and I think she definitely needs to be a U.S. citizen. But unlike people who have celebrity crushes, I've actually talked directly to Barbara, both in DMs and on emails and things along those lines. So it's not completely unrealistic. There's still a possibility.
Like 0.2 of 1%.
And the more I talk on this stream, the less likely that is to occur.
0.2 of 1% just went to a 100th of 1%.
Yeah. Although, if I could have some kind of impact on her ability to become a U.S. citizen, I don't know, that might at least get the foot in the door. Might be enough to get my foot in the door to get the door slammed on my foot. But, hey, that's it. All I'm asking is for a chance. So you're saying there's a chance?
Oh, Lord.
I don't know, like 1 in a million? So you're... Yeah, anyway. That's Dumb and Dumber, right? Anyway,
Yeah. So, that's where I'm going to wrap up while HUMANE is...
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and close the stream, and now that I hopefully appeared intellectual, or at least to the best of my ability throughout the entire stream, only to torpedo it right at the end like we do most streams, right? Just all of that progress, all of that building up, just to sink it at the end. All right, so I'm gonna stop streaming now. We have been going on for wow. I don't know why it says 2 hours and 21 minutes when we started at 4 o'clock. All right, I'm gonna stop streaming and catch you guys next week.